The story opens on a bright, sunny day, showcasing the grand and imposing Campbell house, a castle-like mansion nestled against a snowy mountain range. Inside, a young man with messy blonde hair, Moon Campbell, awakens in a luxurious bed. He is completely bewildered, as his last memory is of dying in a car accident. Looking at his own hands in disbelief, he questions the reality of his situation, wondering if he has somehow traveled through time. He scans the room, taking in the opulent, Western-style palace decor and antique furniture, which is completely foreign to him. His confusion deepens when he looks into a mirror and sees a face that looks exactly like his own, but from when he was 17 or 18 years old. The realization sends a jolt of panic through him. He clutches his head, frantically trying to comprehend where he has been transported to. He pauses for a moment, his blue eyes wide, as he processes the impossible situation he's found himself in. Taking another look at his reflection, he can't help but admire how handsome his younger self was. He chuckles, thinking this must be some kind of incredibly realistic game. But then a sudden thought strikes him, wiping the smirk off his face. He recalls a familiar trope, getting hit by a truck and being transported to another world. It's a cliché he read about in stories, something he fantasized about as a middle-aged man before he died. Determined to find out if this is real, he spots an ornate dagger on his dresser. He picks it up, deciding he needs to confirm his new reality one way or another. Without a second thought, he slices his finger with the blade, causing blood to splatter dramatically. He stares at the shallow cut on his finger. The knife was far sharper than he expected for a mere decoration. Suddenly, the intense pain hits him. He writhes on the floor, screaming. The pain is undeniable proof this isn't a dream. He really has been transported to another world. As the pain subsides, a dark memory flashes before his eyes, showing an ominous, almost demonic version of himself. He suddenly recalls the story of this body's original owner. Moon Campbell blasphemed the royal family, was stripped of his noble status, and sentenced to a life of exile. The memory shows the original Moon Campbell, ragged and broken, cast out and warned that he would be killed without mercy if he ever set foot in the Empire again. Back in the present, Moon Campbell pants heavily, sweat dripping down his face. He had thought the name was just a coincidence, but now he knows the horrifying truth. He has actually transmigrated into the body of that mentally retarded dude, the yellow-haired villain, who isn't even a significant enemy in the story. His mind flashes back to his old life, lying in bed reading a web novel on his phone. It was called The Strongest Female Main Character in History, one of the few he followed daily, about the illegitimate daughter of a fallen noble family who becomes a world-saving hero. He remembers the book's description of Moon Campbell, a brainless, yellow-haired villain who constantly uses his family's power to bully the heroine, effectively serving as a walking experience point farm for the protagonist's party before his inevitable downfall and exile. He collapses onto his knees in despair. He doesn't want to be a fool who gets in the protagonist's way, but now that fool is him. The full weight of his situation crashes down on him. He thought he might get to be the hero after being reborn, but instead, he's just a stepping stone for the real protagonist. He clutches his head, crying out, "What should I do?" It's over. Just as he's spiraling into panic, a sharp knock at the door breaks the silence. A maid stands outside his room, interrupting his crisis. Still slumped on the floor from the shock, Moon pulls himself together enough to weakly call out for her to come in, bracing himself for the interruption. The door opens to reveal a beautiful maid with dark hair and red eyes. A nameplate identifies her as Anne, a maid of the Campbell house. Moon recognizes her and calls her by name, asking what she needs. Anne informs him that the dress for the banquet has been delivered, and that the madam asked her to bring it for him to try on. Trying to act nonchalant, Moon smiles and tells her to just put it aside. However, Anne hesitates, her sharp eyes noticing that something is amiss with her young master. She spots the fresh cut on his hand and asks if he's injured. Moon casually explains he accidentally broke the skin and asks if she has any medicine or a band-aid. Anne simply repeats the unfamiliar word, band-aid. Anne states that while she doesn't know what he's talking about, she can handle stopping the bleeding herself. Moon looks on, intrigued, as she moves towards him. Before he can react, Anne takes his hand and brings his bleeding finger to her lips, licking the wound clean. Moon is utterly flabbergasted, his face flushing bright red as he lets out a shocked, "Eh." Anne pulls back slightly, confirming that the bleeding has stopped. She declares with a serious expression, "Every drop of the young master's blood is very precious." Looking him directly in the eyes, she blushes slightly and gently chides him, "Please don't hurt yourself so easily." Still betrayed and sweating, the flustered Moon can only stammer out an agreement, promising to remember her words. With her duty done, Anne asks if he needs anything else before she returns to her work. Moon, trying to regain his composure, thanks her for her hard work. The door clicks shut, leaving Moon alone in the room with his racing heart. He stands there for a moment, fists clenched and face still flushed, trying to process the incredibly bizarre and intimate encounter. Suddenly, his embarrassment turns into perverted delight. He throws his head back, his eyes turning to hearts as he shouts, "Oh my God, this is too foul." He throws himself onto the bed, rolling around and giggling like a fool. He can't get the image of the gentle, black-haired maid out of his head, thinking she is incredibly cute. Outside the room, Anne pauses before walking away, a thoughtful expression on her face as she calls out, "Young master." Her eyes widen slightly in surprise. She thinks to herself, did he just say thank you to me? This simple courtesy was clearly something she wasn't used to from the original Moon Campbell. After his moment of giddiness, Moon flops onto the bed, his thoughts turning serious again. He muses that being a good-looking duke's son with money and a maid should be a great life. He wonders why the original Moon would throw it all away by provoking the protagonist. Then he remembers the trigger for his exile, drugging the third princess of the empire at his coming-of-age ceremony. A smirk spreads across his face as he realizes the solution seems simple. Now that he knows the cause, all he has to do is avoid provoking the female main character during the ceremony. He clenches his fist, filled with new resolve, believing he still has a chance to change his fate. He sits up contemplating his future. To continue being a rich and wealthy young master, he needs to think carefully. His first question, when exactly is the coming-of-age ceremony? His thoughts drift back to his recent conversation. Anne just now sent a dress for the coming-of-age ceremony, tomorrow. The horrifying realization hits him like a lightning bolt. He turns to stone, the single word echoing in his mind, tomorrow. A deafening scream of fuck erupts from the mansion, shattering the peace of the day. His doom is not a distant threat, it's less than 24 hours away. In absolute desperation, Moon curls into a ball in his bed, calling out for any divine intervention or transmigration cheat he can think of. System, are you there, Grandpa, Goddess? Monk, he knows he needs a miracle to get out of this. Tears of despair stream down his face as he pleads with the universe. Can anyone pay attention to me? Do I really not have any cheats? He laments his awful luck, feeling as if he's being punished for using up all his good fortune on gacha games in his previous life. With no external help in sight, he realizes he's completely on his own. Lying in bed, Moon desperately tries to formulate a plan. The coming-of-age ceremony is tomorrow. It's too late. He doubts a simple apology will resolve past grudges. He even morbidly wonders if she'll make him lick her feet in public for forgiveness. He imagines himself as a chibi character being stepped on by the protagonist, telling himself that a real man can endure humiliation. The insult of licking feet is nothing compared to becoming a crippled beggar. He then comically adds that it would be better if she wore black stockings tomorrow. With newfound, if slightly twisted, determination, he decides on a course of action. When he meets the protagonist tomorrow, he will immediately rush to her, kneel at the speed of light, and kowtow 3 times. But just as he's firming up his resolve, something hard suddenly smacks him on the head with a loud whack. He cries out in pain, clutching his head. Angrily, he demands to know what the hell that was, complaining that it hurt so much it felt like it smashed through his head. Looking over, his eyes land on a small, dark, ornate book lying on the pillow where his head just was. The book emits a faint, magical blue aura. A realization dawns on him. Could it be? His face explodes with manic joy. All his desperation vanishes in an instant as he triumphantly screams, the plugin HASARRIVED. He holds the book in his shaking hands, a look of pure, unadulterated excitement on his face. It seems his cheat has finally come. Tears of pure joy stream down his face as he hugs the book tightly. He feels that God still hasn't given up on him. Even if he's a loser destined to be cannon fodder, having a cheat changes everything. A confident, sly look comes over his face. He declares that from this moment on, he will change the original ending and his own fate. As the saying goes, my fate is in my own hands. He eagerly opens the book to discover his newfound power, but his confident expression immediately freezes in place. He stares at the open book with a look of complete and utter bafflement. His hopes are instantly dashed. The pages are completely blank. No, what's going on? He shouts in frustration, a wordless book. He quickly calms himself down, tapping his chin thoughtfully. He reasons that there must be a special way to activate it. Remembering the tropes of the Western European fantasy setting of this world, an idea strikes him. He resolutely bites his own thumb, drawing blood. He lets a drop of his blood fall onto the center of the blank page, a common activation method in many fantasy stories. The moment the blood touches the paper, a sinister dark purple energy erupts from the book, startling Moon. Holy shit, what's going on? He yells as the dark energy swirls violently around him and the book. He feels a strange sensation as the energy intensifies, seeming to draw something from him. He looks down at his hands, a grimace on his face as he realizes it's his blood. His vision begins to blur and darken as the book drains his vitality, but his eyes remain fixed, determined to see this through. The world goes black and he finds himself in a dark, cold space. A vision appears before him, a bruised and shackled hand, locked into a wooden stock. The vision pans down, revealing that the person's feet are also bound in heavy iron shackles. The full scene is revealed. It is Moon himself, stripped to the waist, his muscular torso chained tightly to a wall and covered in wounds. In this horrifying precognitive dream, his eye opens. He is conscious, trapped, and at the mercy of an unseen tormentor. In the vision, the beaten and chained Moon groans, his face bruised and his consciousness hazy. He slowly comes to, trying to understand where he is. A figure emerges from the darkness, her face inches from his. It's Anne, his maid, but her eyes glow with a terrifying red light, and her smile is cruel and possessive. She whispers that she has been waiting for him to wake up. Moon can only look on in horror. Anne yanks hard on the chains binding him, causing him to cry out in pain. She tells him coldly that the pain is inevitable, as it's all to teach him a lesson. She trails a finger across his wounded chest, her voice filled with a chilling sadness. She tells him he doesn't know how sad he makes her, and that he shouldn't be like this. She calls him evil, cruel, and selfish. With a sigh, she continues her twisted lesson. She tells him he should bring pain to others and make everyone hate him. Only in that way can he truly belong only to her. She laments that he has changed, and this change of heart simply won't work for her plan. The vision reveals a fate far more terrifying than exile, eternal torment at the hands of his possessive maid. In a dark void, a mysterious woman with glowing purple eyes looks down, her expression a mix of obsession and madness. She promises to relentlessly cleanse someone with her love, no matter how long it takes. Her eyes glint with a chilling possessiveness as she declares that they will be together forever. The scene reveals a young man with long blonde hair, chained and bleeding, screaming in terror. The woman's voice echoes that not even death can separate them, as shadowy blades descend upon him. Suddenly, the young man, Moon Campbell, screams in terror as he jolts awake. He sits up in his bed, panting heavily, realizing the horrific ordeal was just a nightmare. Sweating and disoriented, he holds his head, trying to process the horrifyingly vivid dream. He clutches his leg, disturbed that the pain from the dream felt so real. He wonders if it was some kind of precognitive vision. Moon remembers that right before he passed out, a strange book had flipped open and drawn a lot of blood from him. He questions if the dream was a result of something he did wrong. He looks at the mysterious dark book in his hands with a startled expression. As he holds the book, dark energy erupts from it, revealing a chilling message written in red: "Do not change for fate." The ominous purple energy continues to pour out of the book, startling Moon. Moon is left in despair, questioning the book's warning. If he can't change the plot, does that mean he's doomed to that tragic ending? And why would that be a bad thing if the alternative is the nightmare he just witnessed? The morning sun shines through the window of his lavish room. Moon stands by the window, looking at his reflection. He resigns himself to the fact that his previous thoughts were just wishful thinking, and that to survive, he must actively choose the path towards destruction. However, a light bulb goes off in his head. He reconsiders that the original book's ending, where he's exiled and becomes a beggar, isn't so bad because at least he's still alive. He realizes that unlike the original Moon Campbell, he is different. He strikes a confident pose, declaring himself a super working warrior from a modern society. He believes that even if he's exiled, he can start from scratch in another country, using the wisdom of modern people. Looking out the window with a smirk, he dismisses his aristocratic status as something built on exploiting the working class. He feels confident that as a genuine socialist proletarian fighter, he can make a good living in this new world with his own hands and knowledge. Later, Moon sits down to a meal, munching on a large piece of steak. He internally curses, admitting he's never had such delicious steak and wine in his previous life, acknowledging the temptations of the evil privileged class. He fantasizes about all the delicious food he can now enjoy, from sandwiches and roasted chicken to pancakes and cake, drooling with delight. A beautiful woman with golden blonde hair, Duchess Noise Campbell, smiles warmly and asks what has made her little Moon so happy today. An older, distinguished man with white hair, Duke Lon Campbell, chuckles. He assumes Moon must be looking forward to his coming-of-age ceremony banquet tomorrow, one of the most important events in his life. Playing along, Moon calmly confirms to his parents that he is indeed looking forward to it. The Duke boasts about how fast his son has grown up, while the Duchess gushes over how he'll be the most eye-catching person at the banquet. However, the Duke reminds her that Moon already has a fiancée, Princess Celia, and getting other girls' attention might cause trouble. The Duchess pouts, complaining that she doesn't like Princess Celia, calling her cold and not cute enough for her son. But the Duke disagrees, stating that if Princess Celia isn't worthy of their son, then no one is. Listening to his parents' debate, Moon wears a confident, knowing smile. He thinks to himself, "My dear parents, just how confident are you in your son?" as he inwardly prepares himself to deal with the woman at the center of his fate. Princess Celia. Moon inwardly recalls information about Princess Celia. She is the third princess, a pure child blessed by God, and a strong candidate for the most beautiful woman in the empire. In the original novel, she was beloved for her cold exterior but warm interior. He scoffs internally, thinking, "Don't you know what kind of rotten fish your son is?" He knows his loving parents are the only two people in the world who treat the original, worthless Moon Campbell like a treasure. He reflects on the novel's plot. His parents were good people, but because of their son's actions at the coming-of-age ceremony, the entire Campbell family was forced to fade out of the upper class. He cannot accept the predetermined fate of being exiled and disabled. Walking through the grand, empty hall, Moon hardens his resolve. He has to do something. The book said he can't change his own fate, but perhaps he can change the fate of others. With a determined look, Moon analyzes the situation. The real reason for his family's downfall wasn't just his crime against the princess, but a larger political power struggle. Therefore, to save his family, someone else must take the blame for the incident. And in a fantasy world, what's more suitable for taking the blame than a demon? The sun sets over the grand Campbell estate. Moon knows there is only one day left to make arrangements. His task is to deal with the future queen, Celia. He reasons that an ordinary drug would never be enough to take down a powerful magic wielder like her, and he has no memory of such a drug existing in the mansion, which means the original Moon must have gotten it from there. As a dozing maid carries a tray nearby, Moon plots. He needs to sneak out and find the place mentioned in the novel where criminals and evil forces hide. He knows he can't divert the blame with words alone. Suddenly, a loud thud echoes through the hall. The clumsy maid has fallen, spilling the tea everywhere. She sits on the floor, dizzy and in pain, complaining that the master and madam's black tea is now ruined. Moon turns and apologizes, admitting he was lost in thought and didn't see her. The maid looks up, her eyes widening in shock as she recognizes him. Stuttering in fear, she shouts, "Young Master Moon." The maid scrambles towards him in a panic, desperate to clean the tea off his clothes. She looks at the stain on his pristine white uniform and internally screams, thinking it's all over. Absolutely terrified, the maid bows her head and begs for her life, pleading for him not to hit her or strip her naked and throw her on the street. She promises to never do it again. Moon is taken aback. He can't believe a simple spill of tea scared the girl so badly. He wonders just how terrible the original owner's reputation was. Moon gently places a hand on the maid's head, telling her it's okay and he won't punish her. She looks up, surprised. He then notices how warm she is, exclaiming, "You feel so hot." Using a modern person's unique therapy for assessment method, Moon places his forehead against hers. He confirms she has a fever and tells her she should take a rest, as her forehead is hot enough to boil an egg. The maid is flustered and speechless. The sick maid weakly protests, explaining that she can't rest because the coming-of-age banquet is tomorrow and they're already short-staffed. Just then, a voice calls out to young Master Moon. It's Anne, the dark-haired maid from his nightmares. Moon, seeing her, says she came at the right time and asks her to make arrangements for the sick maid. Moon kindly asks the sick maid her name. She shyly introduces herself as Noelle. Moon then instructs Anne to arrange for Noelle to have a rest. Anne protests, explaining that with the banquet tomorrow, every maid has duties, and if Noelle takes a rest, it will make the work much heavier for the others. Moon retorts that they can simply recruit more people, questioning if the huge Duke's mansion can't afford it. Moon turns away, giving a firm order. He tells Anne to inform the head maid that all unwell servants are to be given rest and that new ones will be recruited. He states he doesn't want a bunch of mentally disturbed patients appearing at his ceremony and causing trouble. Anne bows her head, her expression unreadable, as she agrees to pass the order on to the head maid, noting the stark departure from her master's usual commands. With his orders given, Moon turns and walks away. The scene lingers on Anne and the recovering Noelle, who are left behind in the grand hallway to process what just happened. Noelle expresses her confusion to Anne, mentioning that she remembers the young master previously saying he didn't want dirty outsiders in the mansion. Anne simply tells her not to overthink it and to follow the master's orders and go rest. As Noelle walks away, Anne watches her go, a thoughtful expression on her face. She notes the subtle changes in her master's behavior and decides she needs to start planning in advance to prevent any uncontrollable situations. Later in his room, Moon frantically searches through a treasure chest, tossing aside jewelry and valuables. He digs deep into the chest, muttering that what he's looking for isn't there, even though he clearly remembers it. He thinks about the beautiful Princess Celia again. He knows that to deal with a super magic genius like her, the only way is to use a special, expensive, and contraband psychedelic potion. And the only place that would sell such a thing is success. He finally finds what he was looking for, exclaiming that the original Moon really was a scumbag. He remembers that the item he now holds was quite difficult to get in the original novel. He holds up his prize, a black and gold underground black market VIP voucher. Night falls and a carriage makes its way across a stone bridge. The carriage stops in front of the Chesford Chamber of Commerce. Moon tells his attendants to wait, using the excuse that he's going to buy some jewelry for his parents to wear at the banquet tomorrow. With a confident smirk, Moon walks away from the carriage, his real mission about to begin. He disappears into the dark, crowded streets of the city. Following the route from the novel that he memorized, Moon makes his way through the deep, dark sewers of Belrin City, located just outside the royal city. Now disguised in a dark, hooded cloak and a white mask, Moon holds a torch aloft, convinced he has found the entrance to the black market. A sinister-looking guard blocks his path, demanding to know who he is. Moon calmly gives the password he remembers, sewer rats. The guard asks his purpose. Moon states he is looking for carrion and presents the VIP voucher as his credential. The guard accepts the voucher and invites the dear guest to come in. Moon peeks through the opening door with a triumphant smirk. He steps into the Leopold underground black market, a bustling and chaotic hidden town teeming with shadowy figures. As he walks through the market, he observes the various illicit goods for sale. Jars filled with questionable potion ingredients like brains, and cages holding glowing-eyed magical synthetic beasts. Moon notes that the market is just as the novel described, even having subhuman slaves for sale. He recalls that one of the protagonist's future teammates was bought from here. However, he dismisses these thoughts, reminding himself to focus on the real work first. He arrives at a small shop and rings a bell at the door. A mysterious shopkeeper in a red, cat-eared hood and a white mask pops up, enthusiastically welcoming their first guest of the day. The masked merchant asks what he would like to see, boasting that their small shop has everything. Moon, still disguised, gets straight to the point, stating he wants that potion, one that is colorless, odorless, specifically targets magicians, and renders them unconscious for hours. The merchant immediately understands, cheekily assuming it's for the kinky games rich people play. They even offer to recommend some good slave shops for a referral fee. Moon, having no time for such games, bluntly refuses the upsell and turns to leave. The merchant, seeing a big sale about to walk out the door, instantly drops the cheeky sales pitch and panics, desperately begging him to stay by insisting they do have the potion he needs. Having successfully stopped him, the merchant explains that the potion is indeed a rare treasure and asks him to wait just a moment while they search for it. As the merchant turns to rummage through their supplies, Moon is left to wait, giving him his first real opportunity to size up the mysterious shopkeeper. As he waits, Moon observes the merchant. He notes that while she wore a full-covering mask and her voice was magically processed to hide her gender, her tone and demeanor give him a strong suspicion. As the merchant bends over to search a box, muttering about 2 bottles she made recently, Moon gets an excellent view of her figure. His suspicion is confirmed as he internally exclaims, "And this awesome body." Moon deduces that the woman is likely a beauty, but her methods must be even more powerful than her figure to allow her to have a foothold in a dangerous place like this. He thinks strategically, realizing that if he can establish a good relationship with her, she might be able to help him when he is eventually exiled in the future. In a mysterious shop filled with strange potions, a shopkeeper in a red cat-eared hood reassures her client, "Wait for me a little longer, young master, tilde it's okay. As long as you have it, there's no rush." Suddenly, the bell at the door jingles, and Moon Campbell, the young master, turns his head, alerted by the sound of a new arrival. A tall, intimidating figure in a black cloak and mask enters the shop. The cheerful shopkeeper turns to greet the new arrival, saying, "Welcome, guest." The mysterious guest gets straight to the point, her red eyes gleaming from behind the mask. "I want to buy a special kind of drug that is very strong but won't leave any magical traces afterwards. Is there any?" The shopkeeper seems taken aback for a moment but quickly recovers. This. Yes, please wait a moment." She thinks to herself, "Normally no one is interested in this type of potion. It's really strange today." From the shadows, Moon observes the new customer. He notes her feminine figure and the faint scent emanating from her, wondering why a woman would need such a dangerous potion. Moon sighs internally, realizing the grim purpose of the drug. Buying this medicine is most likely to harm someone, but unfortunately I can't stop it. That guy who will be drugged, you're on your own." Biletter 1 ECF Qua, S companion finds the color rather conspicuous. Roid, 0C06897E09A2-4DC5-8B3CB1, BA4A0F0F1, panel number 8. Narration, the shopkeeper explains. The shopkeeper explains away the concern. Customers don't need to worry. Although the color of this medicine is indeed bright, it is completely undetectable if placed in drinks such as red wine. Just drinking a tiny drop of it will make even an elephant lose consciousness instantly and faint for 2 or 3 hours. Moon's companion is startled by the claim, his eyes widening in shock. 1 drop can charm an elephant, is this true? The shopkeeper confirms its potency and adds a sly warning. "Of course it's true, you get what you pay for. If you don't believe me, you can try it. But please note that if you fall asleep here, I will charge you 5,000 Emil's nursing fee per hour." The mysterious woman holding the potion simply replies, "That's not necessary." With the sales pitch complete, the shopkeeper states the price. The special sleeping potion, A Dream of Nankiang, is priced at 130,000 Emil. Our shop never accepts any form of bargaining. Would you like to pay by card or cash? The mysterious woman hesitates before admitting, I don't have enough Emil, and I don't intend to pay the bill with Emil. She proposes an alternative. "I can sell you an intelligence in exchange for the potion." The shopkeeper, intrigued, replies, "Oh, my dear, I have to remind you that 130,000 is not a small amount." The woman holds up a sealed envelope, confident in her offer. "This information is definitely worth 130,000. To different people, it may be worth far more than 130,000. The shopkeeper takes the letter, her interest piqued. "All right, let me see what kind of information it is." She begins to read the contents. The shopkeeper looks up from the letter, her masked face unreadable. That's interesting. Are you sure this information is true?" The woman replies coolly, "Whether it is true or not, I would like you to find out with your ability as the store owner." The shopkeeper seems satisfied. "Oh, this guest really trusts me, but as you said, this information is indeed worth 130,000. Here, this potion is yours." The woman takes the potion and gives a simple thanks. The shopkeeper sends her off, saying, "Take care, I won't see you off." After the mysterious woman leaves, Moon finally steps forward for his own transaction. "What about you, young master?" the shopkeeper asks. He presents a card, saying, "Swipe my card." The shopkeeper returns his crystal card and offers him a small gift, a second, smaller bottle containing a purple liquid. "A small gift? What is this bottle for?" Moon asks, surprised. The shopkeeper winks playfully. "That's the one I use, you know. It will be a better experience when paired with the red bottle." Moon accepts the gift. "Thank you, manager. By the way, the information that woman just mentioned." The shopkeeper leans on her desk, her interest clearly piqued by his question. "Oh my, young master, are you also interested in this information?" she adds slyly, "considering we are old acquaintances." She makes him a special offer. "I'll sell it to you at this price." Moon looks at the fingers she holds up and clarifies, 90,000. The shopkeeper corrects Moon with a sly tone, holding up her fingers, 900,000. Moon doesn't even flinch at the exorbitant price. He simply says, no, thank you, and turns to leave the shop. As he walks out, Moon thinks to himself, annoyed. He realizes the shopkeeper made a massive profit by reselling the information he just declined. He concludes that the black market is full of profiteers, and he needs to find a more upright and trustworthy partner for his plans. The shopkeeper waves him off cheerfully as the door closes behind him. Goodbye, young master. Please come next time, Tilda. Once Moon is gone, the shopkeeper falls silent, contemplating the recent events. She removes her mask, revealing the face of a beautiful young woman with long, dark hair. She muses aloud about the valuable information she now possesses, connecting the dots between the Campbell's ceremony, the presence of the third princess, and the Duke's sudden need for manpower. A cunning idea forms in her mind. She recalls the long-standing animosity between the second prince and Grand Duke Campbell, and the separate rivalry with Duke Raymond. Holding her mask, she thinks, such an interesting thing, why not sell to both sides? A wicked smile plays on her lips as she relishes her own deviousness. Killing two birds with one stone, I am really a bad guy. The scene shifts. It is the following night, and the Grand Campbell's palace is lit up, bustling with activity for the coming-of-age ceremony. Inside, the ballroom is filled with nobility. Moon stands beside his father, the long-haired Grand Duke Campbell, greeting their guests. A nervous nobleman presents his daughter to the Grand Duke, urging her to give her greetings. The young lady, blushing and stammering, can barely get her words out. Her eyes land on Moon and her face drains of color. She is clearly terrified of him, sweating and trembling in his presence. Overcome with fear, the girl hastily makes an excuse. Mother is calling me, sorry to leave now, and flees the scene, leaving her father and the Campbells in awkward silence. Her father apologizes profusely for his daughter's shyness. Moon, however, puts on a kind and understanding smile. It's okay, I don't take it to heart. It's our fault for not welcoming you well. As they take their seats, Moon allows himself a small, knowing smile. As expected, he thinks, fully aware that the girl's reaction is due to the original Moon's terrible reputation. He glances around the room, noticing that all the young noblewomen, including the daughter of Marquis Hill, are looking at him with the same fearful, disdainful expressions. He lets out a small, frustrated sigh in a comical chibai form, lamenting, alas Tilda, after all, the original owner's reputation is really too bad. Suddenly a hand rests on his head, startling him. He looks up to see his father. I am very satisfied with your performance today, the Grand Duke says, looking pleased. His father continues with words of encouragement. I was a little worried before, but now it seems that it was unnecessary. After tonight you will no longer be a boy, but a real man of my Campbell family. Do your best. Moon looks up at his father, a genuine, warm smile on his face, and replies with determination, I will try my best. Just then a voice calls for attention. Everyone, please be quiet. All heads turn towards the grand entrance, where the silhouettes of important guests have appeared. The announcer's voice booms through the hall, beginning the introduction of the guest of honor. Let us welcome the third in line to the Leopold Empire. The crowd looks on in awe as the announcer continues, heralding the arrival of the pure white girl, blessed by the goddess of ice and snow. And there she is, resplendent with long silver hair and an aura of cold nobility. The announcer presents her to the assembly, the third princess of the empire, Her Highness Elijah. Grand Duke Campbell claps a hand on Moon's shoulder. I will go and receive the other two dukes. I leave this place to you. Remember not to neglect Her Royal Highness the Princess. Moon nods in agreement. Okay, father. Now left alone to his duties, Moon approaches the guest of honor, his arms open in a welcoming gesture. Princess Tilda. He greets her with a charming smile. Long time no see, Master Moon. You are so charming today. Princess Elijah offers a cool, polite reply, though her eyes remain unsmiling. Really, thank you for the compliment. She performs a graceful curtsy, adding a subtle barb. However, it is rare to hear such words of praise from young Master Moon. Moon laughs, feigning innocence. Haha, Your Highness, what you said makes me sound like the kind of rude person who can't even control his mouth. Elijah gives him a piercing look, her voice laced with ice. Isn't it? The single question catches Moon completely off guard. Recovering quickly, Moon smoothly transitions back into the role of a perfect host. Haha, Your Highness must be tired after coming from the royal city. It is better to go in and have a rest first. The princess accepts with a quiet, thank you for that. As soon as she turns away, Moon breathes a sigh of relief. Phew, she's finally gone, he thinks, wiping a bead of sweat. She's really beautiful, but also really scary. As expected of the first female lead in the original book, her aura is truly terrifying. While greeting other nobles, Princess Elijah finds her thoughts drifting back to their brief conversation. She feels that Moon is a little different tonight than before. She glances back at him from across the room, a thoughtful look in her eyes. Is it because he's become more polite, she wonders, intrigued by this unexpected change. Meanwhile, Moon's attention is caught by the chatter of nearby nobles. He overhears them gossiping about an illegitimate daughter who recently made a name for herself by dueling her fiancé. The nobles continue their disdainful chatter, expressing disbelief that Count Bugard would hand over the position of heir to her. Alas, not only is she an illegitimate child, but she is also a woman. How can she be qualified to inherit the title of Earl? Just as they are badmouthing the count, the subjects of their gossip arrive. Two young women walk through the archway, and one of the nobles quickly shushes his companion. Moon's eyes fix on the newcomers, a serious expression on his face. He thinks to himself, finally she is here, the real protagonist of the original book, the ultimate female main character of this world. The two women make their way into the hall. The one in the light, with long brown hair and a confident stride, is Ariel Bugard. Ariel walks directly up to Moon, her expression cold and challenging. Hello, young Master Moon, we meet again. How have you been recently? Moon starts to reply with a polite smile. Ah, I'm fine, but is cut off by an angry shout from the side, you lowly bastard. A sycophantic nobleman, trying to curry favor, charges forward yelling, how can you talk to our young Master Moon? His interruption startles Moon. Before the man can make a bigger scene, Moon swiftly grabs him by the hair and forcefully covers his mouth, yelling shut up, to silence him. Without missing a beat, Moon turns back to Ariel, his charming smile perfectly intact. I'm certainly doing fine lately, Miss Ariel Bugard. Thank you for your concern. Ariel is completely stunned. His polite, calm response is the last thing she expected, leaving her speechless. Ha, you. She eyes him suspiciously, her mind racing. What's going on? This guy didn't even call me a lowly, illegitimate daughter like he did before. His brain can actually remember my full name. Has he gotten it, or is there some conspiracy? Ignoring Ariel's confusion, Moon turns his attention to her timid companion Lee. He offers a gentle hand and asks, this must be Miss Lee, right? The girl is shocked that he knows who she is. Moon continues smoothly, his voice full of charm as he addresses her by her full name. Of course, how could I not know the name of tonight's important guest, Miss Lee Angel? He extends his hand for a handshake, but before Lee can even react, Ariel's hand flashes out, slapping it away with a sharp, protective smack. Ariel stands defensively between Moon and Lee, her voice sharp with suspicion. What are you up to? She gets right in his face, her eyes blazing with protective fire as Lee trembles behind her. Moon Campbell, listen to me. She delivers her warning in a fierce whisper. The reason I'm here is purely for your father's sake. I don't care what conspiracy you have, just come at me. If you dare to have any evil thoughts towards Lee, I will never let you go. With her threat delivered, Ariel turns her back on him, grabbing Lee's arm. Lee, let's go. She leads her friend away, leaving Moon alone once again. Moon watches them go, a resigned smile on his face. Alas, he thinks, it seems that she has a deep stereotype of the original owner, and it is difficult to change it in a short time. But his expression quickly shifts to one of cool confidence. He decides it doesn't matter. After tonight, their destinies will be two completely parallel lines that never intersect. He resolves to let her have her bright future, as he will have his. Just like that, under the watchful eyes of his parents, Moon is formally presented to society from the grand balcony, officially marking his coming of age. With the formal ceremony over, the ball begins. Moon finds Princess Elijah, and with a charming smile, offers his hand. I wonder if I would have the honor to ask you to dance with me. The princess is visibly surprised by the polite invitation. Elijah hesitates for a moment before placing her hand in his. You, forget it, tonight is your coming of age ceremony, so I naturally have no reason to refuse. Moon thanks her graciously. The surrounding nobles are stunned by this development, whispering amongst themselves in disbelief. Moon Campbell, dancing with the princess, it was unheard of. From across the room, Lee spots the unlikely pair and tugs on Ariel's sleeve, exclaiming, Sister Ariel, look. Ariel, however, is more interested in a slice of cake. All eyes are on Moon and Princess Elijah as they take center stage, moving gracefully across the dance floor to the sound of the orchestra. As they dance, Elijah offers a small compliment. You have good dancing steps. Moon humbly accepts the praise, replying, thank you for the compliment, but it is still at the beginner level. Elijah looks at him intently, her eyes searching his. You have indeed changed, Moon Campbell. She clarifies, no, it's the way you invite people. Moon is momentarily confused. Seeing his expression, Elijah elaborates, I remember you said this when you invited a viscount's daughter to the last college ball. She then flawlessly imitates the original Moon's arrogant, condescending tone. Woman, be glad and cheer, for this young master has shown mercy and granted you the right to dance with me. The memory makes Moon break out in a cold sweat. Moon is mortified, blushing and stammering, unable to form a coherent response to being confronted with his past self's awfulness. Elijah looks at him with a deadpan expression and asks, how is it did I imitate it well? Shaking off his embarrassment, Moon quickly apologizes. I was wrong, Your Highness Elijah. Could you please forget what happened back then? As the violins play on, the dance continues, but the conversation has taken a decidedly serious turn. Elijah then makes a surprising request. After this dance, could you please come to my room? Recognizing her implication regarding their engagement, Moon reassures her, I understand, Your Highness. I have no intention of overstepping my bounds. Leaning closer, Moon reveals his true purpose. It is precisely the engagement that I would like to discuss in detail with Your Highness. This piques Elijah's interest. She questions him, do you need to have a private conversation with me about our engagement? As they continue to glide across the dance floor, the center of attention, Moon lays out his argument logically. I know that Her Royal Highness does not like me, and that our marriage is actually just a political marriage arranged by His Majesty, the King, in order to maintain his relationship with my father. He continues, explaining the political bind she is in. If Her Highness were to propose to cancel the engagement, it will inevitably affect the credibility of the royal family and the father-daughter relationship between you and His Majesty. Am I right? Selija quietly concedes the point. Moon presses his advantage, suggesting they have a common goal. So I guess, at least when it comes to calling off the engagement, we're on the same page. If we work together, maybe we can find a decent way to cancel our engagement. What do you think, Her Highness? Princess Selija considers his proposal, and a small, thoughtful smile touches her lips. She agrees. I understand. This is something that can only be discussed between you and me alone. Moon can hardly contain his glee. His plan worked perfectly. He thinks to himself, she took the bait. Sorry, Her Highness. In order to keep the story going smoothly, I can only. He inwardly celebrates successfully manipulating the princess. Just as Moon is mentally patting himself on the back, Selija asks a question that shatters his composure. Where is your room? His eyes go wide in utter shock, his mind short-circuiting. Before the bewildered Moon can react, Selija takes charge. She grabs his hand and starts pulling him off the dance floor. There's no need to wait for the dance to end. Let's go now, she declares, leaving him to stammer Her Highness. In a complete reversal of his plan, Moon is dragged away from the crowded ballroom by a determined Princess Selija, leaving a trail of shocked and gossiping nobles in their wake. His scheme to control his fate has taken a wild and unexpected turn. Two maids are cleaning a luxurious hall. The silver-haired maid gossips to her colleague, commenting that Princess Selija left with the mentally retarded young master. The dark-skinned maid ignores the gossip, urging her partner to action. She reminds her that they must act quickly as they are in the territory of the Lionheart King, implying a sense of danger and urgency. The scene shifts to a lavish room where the young master, Moon, offers a glass of red wine to Princess Selija. However, she flatly refuses his offer. Selija closes her eyes and firmly reiterates that she cannot drink alcohol, not even a single drop. Moon seems to accept her refusal, though he is internally panicking. Moon's internal monologue reveals his frustration. He complains that the original novel never mentioned the princess couldn't drink, and now he has no way to administer the red medicine he prepared. Thinking on his feet, Moon changes his approach. He pleasantly asks Selija what she would prefer if not wine, suggesting coffee or black tea. Selija looks at him, slightly puzzled by the limited options. Moon explains with a smile that due to some unforeseen circumstances, only red wine and black tea are available tonight. Hearing this, Selija agrees to have black tea. Delighted that his plan is back on track, Moon cheerfully announces he will go get the tea now and skips away, leaving a silent Selija on the couch. Watching him leave with such enthusiasm, Selija can't help but wonder to herself, finding it strange that someone could be so joyful just from making tea. Out of sight, Moon begins to prepare the tea. With his back turned, he gets ready to execute his mischievous plan. He pulls out the potion, thinking that while one drop is potent enough for an elephant, he should add a bit more for a powerful magician like Selija. He also decides against using the second, unknown potion to be safe. Suddenly, Selija appears right behind him, asking if he's done yet. Startled, Moon shrieks and fumbles, dropping the potions he was holding. Trying to act natural, Moon turns around with a strained smile, assuring Selija that the tea will be ready very soon. She watches him, seemingly oblivious to his clumsy panic. With his hands behind his back, Moon realizes in horror that in his panic, he has spilled the red aphrodisiac potion all over his other hand, mixing it with the other spilled substance. He glances nervously over his shoulder at Princess Selija, who is now sitting back on the sofa, patiently waiting and unaware of the mess he's made. Wiping sweat from his brow, Moon breathes a sigh of relief. He's glad that the medicine doesn't have any magical fluctuations, or his scheme would have been instantly exposed. But just as he calms down, his eyes widen. A sudden, terrible thought crosses his mind, and he lets out a small huh. He looks in horror at a large red splash on the wall. A significant amount of the precious potion has been wasted. No, he screams internally. His mind flashes to his grand plan. He was going to dilute the potion, sell it as sleeping pills, and earn his first pot of gold. Now his dreams of wealth are all gone. Selija's voice calls out for young Master Moon, snapping him out of his despair. He quickly responds that he's coming and picks up the tray with the 2 teacups. After a moment, he returns to the room, apologizing to the princess for the long wait. Selija looks down at the cup of tea he has served her. She seems hesitant, noting that his family's black tea looks unusual. The view focuses on the teacup resting on her lap. The liquid inside is not the color of black tea at all. Instead, it's a vibrant, sparkling red. Sweating profusely, Moon scrambles for an explanation. He claims it's a precious tea from the East called Big Red Robe. He blurts out the name, desperately hoping she'll believe the outlandish lie. Selija's gaze turns icy and skeptical. Unconvinced by his flimsy excuse, she calmly challenges him. Is that so? Well, young Master Moon, you go first. Moon feigns offense, asking if Her Highness suspects him of tampering with the drinks. Selija calmly replies that as the host, it is basic noble etiquette for him to serve the tea first. Cornered, Moon realizes he has no choice. Resigned, Moon raises his own teacup to his lips, intending to prove its innocence. But just as he's about to drink, Selija tells him to wait a minute. Before he can react, Selija reaches across the table, stating that his cup of tea seems to taste better than hers. With a cunning smile, she holds up her cup and asks, "Do you mind if we swap?" Moon is left utterly speechless, his face a mask of pure shock. A wave of panic washes over Moon as he watches Selija drink the drugged tea that was meant for her all along. His plan has backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Moon can only watch in horror, his hand trembling as he reaches out to stop her, but it's already too late. The effect is instantaneous. Selija's face flushes red, and she glares at Moon with a look of betrayal, spilling the tea as she accusingly shouts, "You." She drops the cup, and a strange, fiery energy erupts from it as it shatters, a reaction far more violent than a simple sleeping potion should cause. Overwhelmed by the potion's unexpected effect, Selija loses consciousness and collapses onto the sofa, leaving a stunned Moon to deal with the consequences. Moon reflects on the situation, relieved he was smart enough to put a sleeping drug in both cups. He muses that since the original novel never mentioned the princess couldn't drink alcohol, his deviation has created an accidental sequel to the plot. He quickly snaps out of his thoughts, remembering the original plot. The female main character is supposed to arrive soon, find them unconscious, and kill him. He realizes he has to prepare the scene immediately. To create a convincing crime scene, Moon begins to stage an assault. He starts by pulling down Selija's stockings and loosening her dress to make it look like a struggle occurred. He considers untying the bottom of her dress but comically decides against it, worried she might catch a cold. Instead, he settles for messing up her hair a bit. Next, he turns his attention to himself. He struggles comically to rip off his own tight-fitting noble attire to complete the look. Finally, with a sigh of relief, he gets his shirt off, revealing a surprisingly chiseled physique underneath. He stands proudly, ready for the next phase of his plan. With Selija suggestively posed on the couch, Moon considers his mission accomplished. Now, all that's left is to wait for the story's main character to walk in. Time begins to pass in the quiet, ornate room. Moon pulls out his pocket watch to check the time, a flicker of concern on his face. He begins to wonder what's going on. A full half an hour has passed. According to the original plot, the heroine Ariel should have rushed in by now. Moon grows anxious, wondering where she could be. He racks his brain, trying to remember the exact sequence of events from the original story that led to Ariel's arrival. He recalls a key scene from the novel. The heroine, Ariel's, clothes were accidentally stained by a seriously ill maid at the Duke's mansion. The memory continues. After the incident, Ariel had then made her way to the bathroom to find something to clean her stained clothes. It was during this detour that she happened upon the room, catching the original villainous owner of Moon's body just as he was about to assault the princess. The realization hits Moon like a bolt of lightning. The key trigger was a seriously ill maid. Could it be? His thoughts race to a single person, the only one it could be. In his mind, he screams out in despair, "Noelle." Moon stares in disbelief, his mind reeling from the implication of what just happened. No way this. He looks at the peacefully sleeping Selija, the terrible truth dawning on him. His interference means he has successfully altered the original storyline. As he looks at Selija's flushed face, he realizes the gravity of his situation. This isn't a minor change, this is a big problem. He tries to calm himself down, reasoning that since the princess has been charmed, he can still salvage the situation. Behind him, an ethereal image of a masked Selija manifests, surrounded by a powerful blue aura. Suddenly, the air grows cold. Moon shivers, wondering why it's gotten so chilly in the middle of summer as a frosty mist begins to creep around him. The cold intensifies, and he lets out a pained grunt, feeling a sharp, freezing sensation wash over him. A massive wave of ice magic erupts from Selija's unconscious body, blasting through the room with incredible force. The ice pins Moon to the ground. Selija, her eyes now covered by a strange mask of ice, floats above him, her body radiating a powerful, frosty energy. Trapped beneath her, Moon panics, frantically trying to explain that it's all a misunderstanding. "Her Highness, please listen to my explanation." In her feverish state, Selija's eyes flutter slightly. She murmurs, "It's so hot." The aphrodisiac is making her burn up from the inside, causing her latent ice magic to run rampant as a defense mechanism. Her face flushed, she continues in a daze. The body wants. The potion is having its intended effect, but with a disastrously magical side effect. Moon realizes her state is completely wrong and dangerous. "No, this is wrong," he shouts, trying to get away and promising to call a doctor. He tries to push her off of him, but the moment his hands make contact, they are instantly encased in sharp, painful ice crystals. Drawn to his body heat to soothe her internal fire, Selija grabs him and leans in closer. "Your body is so cool, I like it," she murmurs as Moon desperately begs for her to wake up. As Selija moves in to kiss him, Moon screams internally for the protagonist, Ariel, to save him. His staged play has become a terrifying reality. The scene abruptly shifts to the Duke's palace, where the heroine, Ariel, is looking at a stain on her clothes. Ariel walks down an elegant hallway, annoyed. She mutters that a little fool named Lee had been careless and gotten cake on her clothes, an event that differs from what Moon remembers from the novel. As she walks, she suddenly stops, sensing something ahead. She peers down a long, ornate corridor, feeling a presence. Who is there?" she calls out. A brown-haired maid steps out from a doorway, startling Ariel as she says, "Excuse me, miss." The maid politely informs Ariel that the area ahead is a restricted part of the Duke's mansion and asks her to turn back, sparking Ariel's curiosity. When Ariel presses for details, the maid simply smiles and says it's a secret she can't share. Annoyed, Ariel clicks her tongue and calls the maid stingy. The maid then notices the cake stain on Ariel's clothes. Ariel explains she was looking for a toilet to wash it, and the maid kindly offers to handle the small matter for her. The maid places her hands over the stain, and with a brilliant flash of emerald light, she uses magic to make the dirt vanish completely. Ariel is completely taken aback, impressed that even the maids in the Grand Duke's mansion are capable of using magic. The maid, seeing she has successfully diverted Ariel's attention from the restricted area, humbly dismisses the feat as nothing worth mentioning, already planning her next move to keep the heroine distracted. After cleaning the dress, the maid gives Ariel a friendly reminder. She mentions that a limited amount of special pachichi cake will be served at the banquet soon, and advises her not to miss it. Ariel's eyes sparkle with excitement. At the mention of the rare dessert, she completely forgets her earlier suspicions, her mind now focused solely on getting her hands on the pachichi cake. She quickly thanks the maid for her help and dashes off, announcing she has to go grab the cake. The maid politely says, "You're welcome," having successfully diverted the heroine from her path. With a pleasant smile, the maid waves goodbye to the departing Ariel, telling her to take care. The moment Ariel is out of sight, however, the maid's friendly demeanor vanishes. She glances back with a cold, sharp expression, her mysterious objective seemingly accomplished. A brown-haired maid walks through the corridor, her thoughts troubled. She finds another maid a bit strange, smelling of blood, and is also worried about a person in hiding. However, she quickly dismisses the thoughts, deciding it's none of her business since it's all happening within the Duke's mansion. She winks playfully to herself, thinking about Princess Selija. She muses that Her Highness is already a grown-up and the leading magic genius of her generation, so there's no way she could be taken in by a stupid playboy. Her priorities quickly shift as she gets excited, declaring that nothing is more important than her pachichi cake. She eagerly announces her arrival to her beloved dessert. Elsewhere, a dark-skinned maid with a knife in hand speaks to her accomplice. She confirms that the girl who just left was originally the target of number 9, who was her former partner, and that's how she has information on her. Her silver-haired companion kneels, recalling the failed mission. She explains that she fell into that girl's hands, and that number 9 was killed by her despite being 2 realms higher. The dark-skinned maid urges her to hurry, as they don't have much time. She explains that it won't be easy to breach the gap set up by the Lionheart King Moon Campbell, which covers the entire Duke's palace. The silver-haired maid looks worried. She knows they have to hurry, fearing their mission will fail if Moon Campbell or Princess Selija suddenly appears. However, she believes there's still time based on her earlier investigation. The scene shifts to a tense moment. A person on all fours is seen from behind, with an observer commenting that it looks like he's doing that. A shirtless and muscular Moon Campbell lies on the floor, breathing heavily. Exhausted, he declares that it's finally over. He reflects on his close call, thinking he dodged a bullet and managed to keep his 30-year identity as a great magician. He believes that if he had taken the last step with the princess, he would have been exiled or worse. But now, it seems, it doesn't make any difference. A sharp, glowing blade suddenly appears, pointed right at his throat. An enraged Princess Selija stands over him, her body radiating a frosty aura as she wields an ice sword. She gives him one last chance to speak his final words. Moon Campbell, still lying on the floor, puts on a forced, cheerful smile. He casually says that if she won't tell him, then he won't say anything either. Selija is not amused. Ice magic crackles around her leg as she prepares to strike. Seeing this, Moon Campbell's cheerful facade shatters into panic, and he desperately begs her to wait. He panics, thinking that it's over and he'll die without even a chance for rebirth if he can't calm her down. He decides his only option is to gamble, using the wisdom of modern people. Selija watches him, her expression cold. Moon begins his gamble, quoting a famous line, "There was once a true love in front of me, but I didn't cherish it. I didn't regret it until I lost it." He continues his dramatic monologue with a hopeful expression, "If God could give me another chance." But his words have no effect. The ice blade comes swinging down towards him as he lets out a terrified scream. Selija stops just short, her expression filled with contempt. "So that's why you're so disgusting?" she asks, her voice dripping with ice. Moon Campbell, sweating, tries to defend himself, claiming his feelings are sincere and that they haven't actually made it past that point yet. Selija's anger flares. "You call such dirty and vulgar means sincerity? Are you kidding me, Moon Campbell?" She tells him that if he truly liked her, he should have impressed her with his character, strength, and sincerity like a real man. If he had done that, she might have even considered abiding by the marriage agreement. Her eyes fill with disappointed tears. "But you chose to drug me, the most despicable and shameless method." Moon Campbell gets up, trying to apologize and explain that he had no other choice. But Selija cuts him off, her voice booming with authority as she commands him to shut up and get down on his knees. Just as the tense confrontation reaches its peak, a sudden knock echoes from the door, interrupting the charged atmosphere. Moon Campbell remains on his knees, looking up at Selija as she glares down at him, the tension thick between them. Selija grabs him by the neck, telling him to ask the people outside to leave. He explains that the room is soundproof, and no sound can get in or out, except for knocking. Selija clicks her tongue in annoyance, a frustrated look on her face. She decides to spare his life for now, ordering him to get dressed and open the door. Defeated, Moon Campbell meekly agrees. Having woken from the nightmare, Moon Campbell, now fully dressed, contemplates his grim reality. He realizes he's facing a big problem with only 3 dreadful options left. He considers his potential fates as Selija from his nightmare looks on disdainfully. He could be killed by Selija herself, hanged in public by an angry king, or cut to pieces by an unknown person in a dungeon. No matter the path, it's a dead end. He opens the door to his room, muttering in frustration about the main character's timing, questioning why they would show up now after everything has been settled. He is greeted by an unfamiliar voice calling him, young Master Moon, and he looks up, puzzled. The dark-skinned maid from before stands there with a tray of cakes. She explains that Madam saw him chatting with the princess and sent her with snacks, thinking he might be hungry. Moon thanks her for her hard work. He casually tells her to place the tray on a nearby table, and she agrees. As she passes, a thought strikes Moon Campbell. He stops, a flicker of suspicion on his face, as he realizes he has never seen this maid before. The maid calmly explains that she was just selected to join the Duke's mansion last night, so it's normal he doesn't know her. Moon counters, saying he remembers being told they only hired ordinary servants for the banquet due to a lack of extra maid uniforms. The maid's friendly facade drops. Her eyes narrow into a cold, dangerous glare as she simply confirms his suspicions with a soft yeah. The cakes go flying as the maid dashes past him in a blur of dark energy. Realizing the truth, Moon Campbell screams, "Assassin." A jolt of realization hits him. He understands with horror that the assassin's target isn't him. His eyes widen as he screams the true target's name, Selija. A close-up shows Selija's calm, unsuspecting face. The assassin, wielding 2 daggers and shrouded in dark energy, leaps through the air towards an unsuspecting Selija. A massive explosion of power erupts as the assassin's dark energy clashes violently with Selija's bright blue ice magic. Moon Campbell is caught in the shockwave, thrown back by a powerful gust of wind and ice magic. Struggling against the magical torrent, he grits his teeth and calls out Selija's name, his face a mask of desperation. Inside the room, the battle rages. Selija, now armed with her ice sword, expertly parries the assassin's dual-wielded daggers. With a piercing gaze, Selija confronts her attacker, asking if her stupid brother was the one who sent her. The assassin smirks, declaring her employer's identity a top secret. She confidently tells the princess that she will definitely die here today. Meanwhile, the silver-haired assassin performs a ritual. Golden magic circles flare to life on the walls as she prepares a spell to ensure the third princess is assassinated in the palace. The golden light intensifies as the magical ritual nears completion. The silver-haired assassin declares, "This is your end." A massive explosion of golden light erupts, the force of the blast sending the assassin flying backward. The assassin is stunned by the power of the attack. She thinks to herself that with such a dense magical assault, even the instructors at St. Mary's College would have no choice but to retreat. Her thoughts are cut short as she hears Selija's voice chanting. Ice condenses into shape, frost turns into a spear, bestowing supreme power. The assassin looks on in shock, bleeding from cuts on her face, while a determined Selija glares back at her. Meanwhile, locked outside, Moon Campbell frantically tries to open the door. He panics, realizing that when gods fight, mortals suffer, and he needs to get away before he gets killed in the crossfire. His heart sinks as he confirms his worst fear. The door is locked tight. A wave of powerful ice magic bursts from under the door, knocking him to the ground. He curses in frustration. Peeking through the crack, he realizes the door was tampered with by the maid. This confuses him, as he recalls that there was no assassination plot in the original book he knows. He stops, a sudden, horrifying thought striking him. Wait, could it be that? He remembers a scene from the past, where he, in his role as the arrogant villain, had given an order to the head maid. He had instructed her to send away all servants who were unwell and recruit replacements from outside the mansion, not wanting mentally disturbed patients at his coming-of-age ceremony. The horrifying realization hits him. It was his own order that created the opening for the assassins to infiltrate. He recalls that the decision to seek external assistance was made just last night and wonders if someone is monitoring the mansion 24/7. Suddenly, the door shatters inwards with a blast of ice magic, sending Moon Campbell reeling back in shock. He feels utterly helpless, knowing his own weak body can't possibly survive a battle of this level. He thinks that all he can do is pray that Selija can defeat the assassin. But as he peeks into the room again, he realizes the assassin's target is only Selija. The original story has been changed, and the future is now unknown. A selfish thought crosses his mind as Selija stands powerfully in the distance. Is her winning really a good ending for him? He closes his eyes and considers the alternative. If Selija were to unfortunately die here, then no one would ever know what he had tried to do to her just now. Watching the battle, he can't help but be impressed, admitting to himself that Princess Selija truly is a super genius chosen by God. Selija calmly analyzes her opponent's strategy, identifying their use of short bursts of footwork, light arrow magic, and gravity magic. She correctly deduces that the spells without magical fluctuations were the work of the other assassin in the next room. The wounded assassin admits Selija saw through their plan, just as the rumors said. However, she counters that the rumors aren't accurate enough. boasting that she's killed magical geniuses before and is considered a monster even among them. Selija, radiating with power, holds her ice sword ready. She offers the assassin a deal. Tell me who is behind this and I will spare your life. The assassin bursts into laughter. She says that as an assassin, she shouldn't be engaging in so much nonsense, but she smirks, revealing her true intention. Sometimes, assassins also need to delay time, right? The assassin deploys smoke bombs, creating a diversion as she prepares her next move. From the adjacent room, the silver-haired accomplice shouts that the room is now completely blocked, urging her partner to hurry as she can't hold the spell for long. With the time she bought, the dark-skinned assassin pulls a glowing red artifact from her uniform, ready to use it against the princess. The assassin holds up the red artifact, revealing her dark purpose. She offers a sacrifice of the blood of 100 young children's hearts to the dark gods of her world. Selija's eyes widen in horror and recognition as she identifies the foul magic, the ritual of the evil god. The assassin continues her incantation, her body shrouded in dark energy as she pleads for power from her malevolent deities. A sinister, blood-red energy emanates from the ritual, its power aimed directly at Selija. The dark ritual's power clashes with Selija's ice magic, suppressing her abilities with a wave of red energy. Selija is thrown back, her magic neutralized by the evil ritual. She is wounded but defiant. Gritting her teeth in fury, Selija glares at her opponent. "Evil priests, you gutter rats dare to appear before me," she snarls. The assassin calmly agrees with the princess's assessment. "Rats, indeed, to her royal highness we are rats. But her highness the princess, you will die in the hands of rats soon." The assassin lunges, brandishing her dagger for another attack. She unleashes a furious barrage of strikes, laughing maniacally as blood splatters through the air. The assassin's attack halts, her expression turning to one of confusion. Huh. Selija stands her ground, battered and bleeding, but alive. The assassin is impressed, noting that Selija's swordsmanship is also good, as she managed to avoid all the vital points. The assassin presses her advantage, shouting that now, Selija can't use her powerful ice magic. She kicks the weakened princess, declaring that she is now just a lamb to be slaughtered. Selija is sent crashing into the wall from the force of the blow. She stumbles, her body covered in wounds and her clothes tattered. Breathing heavily, Selija struggles to stay conscious, clearly nearing her limit. The assassin stretches, feeling satisfied and comfortable. She decides it's time to end things. "Next, princess. Your head, I'll take it." She lunges forward with a crazed grin, going for the killing blow. A sharp slice cuts through the air, followed by a spray of fresh blood. Someone has been stabbed. Both the assassin and Princess Selija look on in utter shock, their eyes wide with disbelief at the unexpected turn of events. Moon Campbell stands protectively in front of Selija, having taken the dagger meant for her. Selija looks up at him, stunned, as he shields her from the attack. The assassin freezes, staring in disbelief at the man who has suddenly appeared and thwarted her final blow, Moon Campbell. The scene erupts into chaos. An assassin disguised as a maid lands a vicious kick on Moon Campbell, while Princess Selija, already wounded, shouts his name in alarm. Selija, her face streaked with blood, stares in utter disbelief. Her eyes are wide with confusion as she questions Moon's actions, asking, "You, why?" Moon Campbell coughs up a spray of blood, the impact of the blow rattling him. He seems to be pondering the same question, thinking to himself, "Yes, why is that?" as if he too is surprised by his own choices. From the shadows of a doorway, the assassin offers Moon a way out. She clarifies that their only target is Selija, and he is free to leave. The path to safety is right in front of him. He stands at a crossroads, frozen by indecision. A part of him knows he could just walk away and let Selija die, but his conscience won't let him. A faint, determined smile appears on Moon's bloodied face. He makes his choice. He simply can't bring himself to abandon her. With a surge of adrenaline, Moon throws himself in front of Selija, shielding her from the assassin's next move while shouting her name. Shocked by his sudden act of self-sacrifice, Selija yells at him, urging him to run and save himself. She can't understand why he's choosing to stay and fight. The assassin is enraged by Moon's interference. She screams at him, calling him a useless dandy, furious that his unexpected courage has foiled her plans. Her eyes glow with murderous intent as she snarls, her face a mask of pure fury. Moon's defiance has made the fight personal. Ignoring the injured Moon, the assassin turns her full attention back to Selija. The two women face each other in a tense standoff. The assassin lunges, unleashing a deadly slash of energy straight at Selija, determined to complete her mission. However, Selija proves to be a formidable opponent. She counters the attack, leaving the assassin mortally wounded and collapsing to the ground. Though battered and bruised, Selija stands victorious over her fallen enemy. With a cold and distant look, she declares that the fight is finally over. But the victory came at a great cost. Moon lies on the floor, gasping for air in a pool of his own blood, his body broken from protecting the princess. Selija sits by the dying Moon, her mind racing. She questions his motives, asking if he hired the assassin and why he would risk his life to save her. He simply denies everything. She coldly points out the logic he ignored. If she died, his rebellious behavior would be a secret forever. Letting her perish was the most rational choice for him. Gazing weakly at the ceiling, Moon dismisses her reasoning. he knows his actions were not driven by logic, admitting that none of that matters anymore. Selija recalls his words from a past conversation, where he spoke of pursuing her openly if he were a true man. Suddenly, his reckless sacrifice begins to make a painful kind of sense. With a fragile, bloody smile, Moon looks to her for validation. In his final moments, he needs to know if he has finally lived up to his own words. Selija states the grim reality: he has only 10 breaths left. She offers to carry his last words to his family, a final courtesy for the man who saved her life. He weakly reaches for her, insisting there's no need for last words. He believes his death is the best outcome for everyone, that the world is better off without a nuisance like him. As his hand touches hers, he begins to speak. He apologizes to her, and before she can process it, he continues, leaving her in stunned silence. With his last ounce of strength, Moon Campbell lays his soul bare, confessing the true reason for his sacrifice. "I really like you," he whispers, his eyes closing as the admission finally escapes. His hand, which had been reaching for hers, goes limp and falls to the ground. The confession hangs in the silence between them, a final plea in the face of death. Now, all that's left is Selija and the weight of his last words. But Selija finds no comfort in his final words. Staring down at his lifeless body, she whispers that after everything he's done to her, a simple apology and his death are not enough to repay the debt. Her grief quickly turns to a burning rage. Tears stream from her eyes as she glares at him, shouting his name with all the pain and anger in her heart. A torrent of blue energy erupts from her, swirling around Moon's body. She refuses to grant him the peace of death, declaring that she does not accept his apology. With a voice echoing with power and sorrow, she places a curse upon him, a final, binding command. He must not die. He must live to pay for his sins. Suddenly, Moon finds himself floating in a peaceful, starry void. All the pain, fatigue, and dizziness are gone, replaced by a comfortable warmth. He wonders if this is what it feels like to be dead. He reflects on the outcome. While the end result was still death, this time it was his own choice. He even sees a silver lining, having got to act heroic and confess his feelings to Selija. Still, he admits it was a loss to die so soon after being reborn. He strengthens his resolve, vowing that he cannot be a heartless scumbag like the body's original owner. His introspection is interrupted by the appearance of a strange, swirling mass of dark energy that materializes before him. The ominous shadow begins to creep towards him, wrapping its tendrils around his ethereal form, causing him to panic. The darkness engulfs him completely, and a strange system window appears, showing a progress loading bar. It lists his sins and their progress: arrogance at 50%, jealousy at 99%, and strangely, gluttony at -90%. Overwhelmed, Moon can only shout in confusion. From the darkness, a book appears. Scrawled across its pages is a cryptic message: "Keep struggling for my Moon Campbell." It seems some unknown entity is pulling the strings. Enraged by this new form of imprisonment, Moon curses the mysterious system. He refuses to be dragged back to any scary basement and controlled again. Just as his anger peaks, the terrifying mass of dark energy comically morphs into a cute cat face and lets out a gentle meow tilde, breaking the tension completely. The scene shifts away from the ethereal plane and into the grim reality of the Campbell house sewer, where the water ripples with unseen movement. An assassin wearing a maid's uniform under a dark cloak flees through the sewer. She's frustrated that her mission failed, regretting that she didn't prioritize killing Moon Campbell when she had the chance. She freezes in her tracks as a cold, menacing voice echoes through the tunnel, asking if she was the one who wanted to harm his precious son. An immense fiery aura in the shape of a roaring lion erupts before her, radiating overwhelming power. The assassin stares in terror, realizing she has stumbled upon a truly terrifying figure. With dawning horror, she recognizes the man before her. It's the head of the family, the fearsome patriarch known as Lionheart, Lon Campbell. Lon Campbell stands calmly amidst the flames of his own power. He notes that the uninvited guest knows his name, and coolly asks why she has trespassed in his home. With a chillingly calm expression, he gets straight to the point, his voice dripping with menace as he demands to know what she wanted to do with his baby son. His eyes glow with paternal fury, the fiery lion aura roaring behind him. He leans in, promising to be all ears, making it clear that her answer will determine her fate. The story then cuts back to Moon Campbell, who is now safe in his luxurious bedroom. A maid sits vigil by his bedside as he lies unconscious. Moon's eyes flutter open. He is weak and disoriented from his ordeal, looking groggily at the unfamiliar face of the maid watching over him. The maid introduces herself as Anne. Seeing his confusion, she expresses her concern and offers to immediately call a doctor for him. Moon dismisses her offer, insisting he just needs to use the bathroom. But as he tries to get up, his body is too weak, and Anne rushes to his side to keep him from falling. He lets out a pained groan as his body gives out, a wave of weakness overwhelming him completely. But before he can hit the floor, Anne catches him, shouting for him to be careful as she supports his collapsing body. Resting in her arms, Moon apologizes for his weakness. Anne tells him not to worry, as it's her job to care for him. She then suggests that to make things easier, she can help him use a urinal right there in the room. Moon is rendered speechless, his mind short-circuiting at the suggestion. A urinal, the sheer embarrassment of the situation is overwhelming. Holding up an ornate golden urinal, Anne explains the final detail. His fiancée was so worried that she has tasked Anne with taking care of all his needs, from medicine and bathing to using the toilet. The chapter ends with Moon learning of his engagement and his utter helplessness in the most comical way possible. Moon Campbell wakes up to find his loyal maid, Anne, by his side. She explains that while he was unconscious, she could tell he was unwell just by his frowning and curled-up body, assuring him that no inappropriate incidents like peeing the bed occurred. Anne's professional demeanor takes an awkward turn as she bluntly asks, "Do you need me to take off your pants?" Moon is utterly shocked by the sudden and overly intimate offer. Trying to regain some dignity, Moon insists he can't let her help him with such personal matters now that he's awake. He gently pats his own head and requests her help just to get to the toilet, thinking he can manage by walking slowly. With a calm and accepting expression, Anne agrees to his request, simply saying, "Well, if that is what the young master wants." But before Moon can even process it, Anne moves with surprising speed, leaving him utterly bewildered. Instead of helping him walk, Anne simply lifts him into a princess carry. She states matter-of-factly, "It's faster this way." Moon, caught completely off guard, can only stammer in protest. As they proceed down the hall, they're spotted by two other maids, a blonde maid and one with glasses, who are shocked by the sight of Anne carrying their young master. From the other maid's perspective, the scene is even more scandalous. The blonde maid can't believe her eyes, recognizing both Anne and Moon. While one of the maids shouts to inform the madam that the young master is awake, Moon is mortified by the public display, thinking how embarrassing it is. Anne, however, remains completely unfazed. Having arrived at the bathroom, Moon hesitantly addresses Anne, but she's already asking what's wrong, ever attentive. Moon asks her to leave, but Anne refuses, stating that the madam ordered her to provide 24-hour protection. When he insists, she once again offers to help him with his pants. Having had enough, Moon uses what little strength he has to physically push his overly dedicated maid out of the bathroom. The door slams shut with a loud bang, leaving a chipified Anne standing alone in the hallway, finally getting the message. A little while later, back in Moon's room, Anne helps the exhausted young master settle back into bed. Moon asks how long he was asleep. Anne informs him that he slept for 3 full days. The length of time shocks Moon, who immediately worries about the state of his injury. Anne explains that his injury was healed on the very first evening. It was Her Highness, Princess Selija, who called the chief physician of the Royal Magician Corps to treat him. His prolonged sleep was simply due to weakness from excessive blood loss. Looking at the now-healed scar on his chest, Moon is stunned. The realization that it was Selija, the very person who attacked him, who ended up saving him, is a lot to take in. With a hint of apprehension, Moon asks Anne if the princess said anything else when she intervened. Hearing Anne simply say, "No," Moon breathes a sigh of relief, thinking that maybe Selija doesn't intend to pursue the matter of their confrontation any further. However, his relief is short-lived. Anne clarifies that while Selija didn't say anything to them, she did speak to His Majesty, the King. Moon's face contorts in horror at the implication. Anne recounts the events. After investigations, it was confirmed that Princess Selija was the target of the assassination. The instigator was a black market organization from Belrand. The king, furious, sent troops to clear them out, arresting and executing many. She continues, explaining that the Duke captured 2 assassins alive who confessed everything. Since the incident occurred at their mansion, the Duke was prepared to face the king's wrath. Unexpectedly, the Duke returned unpunished, and the Campbell family was excluded from the subsequent investigation into the aristocracy. Anne concludes that Princess Selija must have said something to the king to resolve the issue on their behalf. Moon collapses back onto the bed, letting out a huge sigh of relief. He complains that Anne's dramatic pauses are bad for his heart, begging her to be more direct next time. Seeing his over-the-top reaction, Anne leans in with a sly look. She teases him, asking if his nervousness means something unspeakable happened between him and the princess. Moon is immediately flustered, stammering as he tries to deny it. Moon's mind flashes back to the life-or-death struggle with Selija, his imagination running wild with Anne's teasing words, picturing the princess whispering, "So hot, want." He panics, frantically trying to shut down Anne's line of questioning. "How is that possible?" he exclaims. "I'm just bad, not stupid. Anyone who dares to do anything to the princess will be beheaded." His outburst is met with silence. Moon, clutching his blanket, can only stammer "What?" as Anne simply stares back at him. A sly smile plays on Anne's lips as she enjoys his discomfort, simply saying, "Really?" as if she knows something he doesn't. Changing the subject, Anne presents a spoonful of dark, viscous medicine. "Come on, young master, drink the medicine tilde it's not hot anymore tilde." Resigned to his fate, Moon reluctantly accepts the spoonful of medicine from his persistent maid. The moment the liquid touches his tongue, his eyes widen in utter horror. The taste is far worse than he could have ever imagined. He violently spits out the medicine, coughing and sputtering. "What kind of medicine is this? It's too bitter, my tongue is numb," he cries out in agony. Anne calmly explains that it's a blood-replenishing tonic, not medicine, and that she already added sugar. She tries to coax him like a child, but Moon insists that the bitterness causes an automatic physical rejection. Outside his room, the other maids hear the commotion. They whisper amongst themselves. The young master is angry again, so scary. The maids recall that their master always hated bitter food and would get furious, even whipping people. One remarks that despite his recent gentle streak, it looks like Anne might get beaten. Another suggests they should go and report to the madam. Overhearing their plan to tattle, Moon peeks out from the doorway, startling them as he shouts, "Don't go." In a desperate attempt to stop them, he yells, "Don't tell Mom, it's just medicine," while simultaneously pointing an accusatory finger at Anne. To prove his point and end the situation, Moon grabs the bowl and chugs the entire concoction in one go, much to everyone's surprise. Thoroughly intimidated by their master's dramatic display, the gossiping maids quickly scatter and flee down the hallway. Moon stands triumphantly with the empty bowl, having successfully averted the crisis of his mother finding out. But his victory is short-lived as the full force of the bitter tonic hits his stomach, causing him to gag. Anne rushes to his side, crying out his name. He ends up hunched over a chamber pot, vomiting. Anne pats his back, apologizing and explaining that she forgot to tell him that drinking it all at once causes physiological nausea. As Moon recovers from his nausea, Anne cheerfully informs him that this was just the 4th course of medicine, and according to the royal physician, he'll be cured after 2 more doses. Moon is horrified. He collapses back into bed, his soul seemingly leaving his body. He moans that the medicine is even more bitter than my life, and dramatically declares he doesn't want to work anymore and would rather destroy the world. Having successfully administered the medicine, Anne offers a truce. She notes there's time before dinner and offers him black tea and pancake, adding she can call a guard at any time if he's not satisfied. Appeased by the offer of cake, Moon accepts it graciously. He thanks Anne for her hard work over the past few days and promises to talk to his mother about getting her a raise. Anne gives a polite curtsy, saying she'll go report to his parents so they won't be worried. As she leaves, Moon happily digs into the cake, admitting to himself that it's delicious. No wonder it's so expensive. Anne mentions one more thing. A letter from the royal palace arrived for him and is waiting in his cabinet. While eating his cake, Moon wonders if it's from Selija and decides he'll look at it later. Taking another bite, Moon continues to ponder the letter, but then a different, more pressing question comes to mind. Just as Anne is about to leave, Moon stops her, saying that a sudden thought occurred to him. He asks how she managed to feed him the bitter medicine while he was unconscious, reasoning that even by pure instinct, there's no way he would have eaten something so foul. Anne freezes in her tracks. Moon quickly clarifies that he's just curious, wondering how she fed him since there isn't any equipment like a gastric tube in this world. With a slight, knowing smile, Anne turns back and says, "It's just as you thought, young master. I know you can't bear hardship, so I put a lot of sugar in your mouth." As she walks out the door, Moon repeats her words to himself. It turns out that sugar was added. And the horrifying realization begins to dawn on him as he questions, "In the mouth?" His mind races in panic as he covers his mouth. Whose mouth? Mine, hers. A flashback reveals the actual situation. While he was unconscious, Anne fed him the medicine mouth to mouth. The flashback ends, and all Anne hears from outside the closed door is Moon's blood-curdling scream of delayed horror. A moment later, however, Moon is blushing and giggling to himself. He reflects on his privileged life and then realizes with giddy delight that the mouth-to-mouth feeding was his very first kiss. But his joy is cut short as a sudden memory strikes him. "Wrong," he exclaims. He remembers the moment he pushed Princess Selija out of harm's way, their lips accidentally brushing against each other. His actual first kiss had already been taken. The thought of his encounter with the princess reminds him of the letter Anne mentioned. He throws off his blanket and scrambles out of bed to find it. He retrieves the letter from his nightstand. It's marked with the seal of the royal palace. Inside, the letter from Selija is brief and cryptic, stating only, "Just treat you as half a man, Moon Campbell." Moon lets out a massive sigh of relief, interpreting the message as a sign that she isn't planning to pursue his past crimes for the time being. He feels a profound sense of relief, believing that by saving her, he has successfully avoided the worst possible ending. The scene shifts to later that evening at mealtime, where a woman's voice lovingly calls out for Mewan, her little Mewan. His mother smothers him in a hug, dramatically crying that she was scared to death when his father carried him home covered in blood. Moon awkwardly tries to comfort her. His mother continues to weep, telling him to look at himself in the mirror, unable to bear the sight of his injury. She laments that her perfect little son has such an ugly wound. Moon tries to downplay it, insisting it's just a minor injury and that he's perfectly fine apart from feeling a little weak. His father, Lon Campbell, comforts his wife, agreeing with Moon that it's just a minor injury and that scars are medals of honor for men. He then sincerely thanks his son, admitting that without his heroic act of saving the princess, not even his own great military exploits could have saved him from the king's wrath. Now seated for dinner, Moon takes the opportunity to ask his father for more details about what happened with the assassins. Lon Campbell begins his debrief, explaining the details of the attack. He reveals there were 3 assassins in total targeting the princess. Aside from the one Her Highness killed on the spot and the one who broke the barrier, there was a third accomplice responsible for contact, whom Lon's men captured from the sewers. He confirms that he sent the 2 survivors to the palace for interrogation overnight. Lon continues, explaining that while the assassins were stubborn, they eventually broke under interrogation. He reveals a key discovery. They weren't professional death warriors, but rather bounty hunters from the Belran black market. More disturbingly, they belong to a fanatical cult that worships an evil god they call the King of Withering. Moon inwardly processes the new information. He doesn't recall any mention of the King of Withering or these bounty hunters in the original novel, leading him to dismiss them as an insignificant, small group. However, Moon Campbell continues, revealing that according to the Royal Guards, the gang is a vicious criminal organization that has existed for years. They are a group of desperate criminals who will take any job for the right price, even killing their own parents. His mother tries to reassure him, stating that his father has already led his men to eliminate the organization over the past 2 days. Moon is stunned by this news, questioning the complete eradication. She proudly boasts about Lan's status as the first Grand Duke, while Lan himself humbly downplays his actions, stating he was merely ordered to clean up the rat nests around the royal capital. Playing the part of the dutiful son, Moon compliments his father's strength before asking the most important question: had he discovered who hired the assassins? Unfortunately, Lan says they found no answers. All the arrested hunters were cursed to immediately burn to death the moment they tried to reveal the mastermind, a fact that further angered His Majesty. Lan concludes that while the Belran black market is destroyed, there's no substantial evidence about the mastermind, proving they have deep control over the capital's underworld. As a result, the king has ordered a thorough investigation of all nobles who might dare to attack Princess Celicia. Moon is thunderstruck. He suddenly realizes that his father destroying Belran's underground black market was a major event from the original novel. He recalls the original plot. The incident happened because someone put a bounty on the life of the king's favorite concubine on the black market. An assassin not only took the bounty but succeeded. The king's fury led to a brutal 3-month-long purge that killed so many people the sewers of the royal city were dyed red. The event came to be known as the Blood River Incident. Moon puts the pieces together. That incident was supposed to happen in 2 years. But now that he saved the princess and his father has already destroyed the black market, the original Blood River Incident will never occur. He thinks about the consequences. The Blood River Incident was a massive event for the original book's protagonist, Ariel, who was swept up in the conflict during a black market auction. After falling into crisis several times, Ariel used her protagonist's luck to avert danger, and her strength grew rapidly. The incident was a crucial transitional chapter for her, but now it's gone. He realizes with comical horror that his one small action has caused a massive chain reaction. The original storyline is now completely messed up and can't be reversed. Later that night, sitting at his desk, Moon reflects on his new reality. Though his parents told him to rest, he knows it's not the time for that. The plot has completely diverged from the original book's trajectory, meaning all the events he is about to face are now unknown to him. Moon Campbell reflects on his new reality. He realizes the plot of the original book is no longer a reliable guide, and his survival now depends entirely on himself. To navigate this, he decides to set a few small goals first. He diligently writes down his new life goals. First, to survive at all costs. Second, to avoid the tragic ending of being imprisoned and abused. Third, to become stronger. And a fourth, crucial reminder to himself: the Black Book is not to be trusted. He pauses his writing, holding the feather quill in his mouth as he thoughtfully considers his plans. However, fear still lingers. He recalls a murderer's voice from a prophetic dream. Even though he doesn't recognize it, he can't ignore the horrifying possibility of being captured, imprisoned, and brutally sliced into 1,000 pieces. He must be cautious of the Black Book's prophecy, as the true cause of his foretold demise remains a mystery. If it's not the heroines, Ariel and Celicia, who hold such strong hatred for him, then who could it be? He clutches his head in frustration. Being at a disadvantage due to the lack of information is incredibly annoying. He can't understand anything from just one small segment of a prophetic dream. He sighs and falls back onto his bed, deciding to forget about it for now. There's no point in overthinking. He should focus on what he can do at this very moment. His eyes fall back on his goals. Getting stronger is the absolute top priority. However, as a duke's son, the conventional methods of training are not enough to close the massive power gap between him and the protagonist's group. He scoffs, remembering how the body's original owner wasted so much time. After a whole year at St. Maria Academy, the only magic he can recall is a single, basic light spell. It's utterly ridiculous. Fortunately, his physical condition isn't bad. He's at the level of a late-stage First Order, but according to the Academy's combat power system, he knows he probably can't advance any higher at his current stage. He covers his face, feeling hopeless. Even if he somehow managed to reach the Fifth Order, it would be useless against Ariel and Celicia. They are God's chosen, practically humanoid cheat codes that break the world's rules. Take Celicia, for instance. She was granted authority by the goddess of ice and snow not long after she was born, giving her a native instinct to manipulate ice that is far beyond the divine power clerics obtain through prayer and transactions. And then there's Ariel, the super-strong Joshin from the original book. Moon recalls that in the later stages of the story, she had divine blessings in the double digits, able to call upon countless gods for help without hesitation. If she can't win, she'll just call for the gods. It's amazing. Thinking of Ariel, he knows that even now, her strength is comparable to his, but she also possesses divine magic and various unique items. Beating an ordinary opponent with a 2-tier difference is no problem for her. Against a noob like him, he simply can't win. He closes the book, his mind made up. After analyzing the current situation, the answer is obvious. His determined eyes are reflected in the book's spine. His ultimate goal for this stage is clear. As quickly as possible, he must reach a level where he can protect himself, even when facing Ariel. A confident smile plays on his lips. He acknowledges that Ariel's cheats are strong and numerous, but he isn't without his own. Thanks to the assassin incident, he's awakened a new ability. And that ability is the Black Book. He summons a small, sharp, golden object that materializes in his hand. With a smirk, he says, "On call," as a shadowy aura emanates from his hand, summoning the book itself. A small, comical thought bubble shows a chibi version of him hatching from an egg, representing his glee and the birth of his new power. Suddenly, an immense force yanks at him, causing him to scream in agony, as it feels like his very soul is being ripped from his body. He clutches the book, furious and in pain. "That hurts," he shouts. "If you want to kill me, just say so. How dare you attack my little brother? I still need to use it in the future." As the dark energy swirls, a tear forms in his eye from the sheer pain, but his expression remains steadfast and determined. He looks down, confused, as the Black Book begins to rustle. On its own, the pages start flipping rapidly, as if searching for something. The book then lands on a page filled with text. It's a detailed log, recounting recent events in his life, visiting the black market, training with the head maid, delivering his coming-of-age speech, and even dancing with Princess Celicia. As Muin reads the book, he's appalled. It's recording the events of the past few days in excruciating detail, including when Celicia pinned him to the ground. He complains that it feels like he's the main character in a dirty book. But then his eyes widen as he stops on a particular detail in the text. "Hey, wait a minute," he thinks, having noticed something unusual. He focuses on a passage describing how he carelessly opened a door and was attacked by an assassin. He wonders, why is this text red? Is there some? Before he can finish the thought, a violent, blood-red energy erupts from the book, startling him completely. "Holy shit, again," he shouts. He's engulfed by the crimson tendrils, gritting his teeth as he struggles against the force. "Can't you give me a heads up next time?" he yells at the book in frustration. In a flash, he's transported to a different place. He instinctively takes a defensive stance, looking around in confusion. "Where is this?" he asks. He finds himself in a vast, dimly lit hall. It's not the dungeon from before. He quickly deduces, could it be? This is a space within the Black Book. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to a figure emerging from the shadows. His eyes widen as he sees the silhouette of an assassin with glowing red eyes. "Who's there?" he calls out, his voice filled with alarm and surprise. Muin instantly recognizes the assassin's technique, shadow step. Before he can fully react, the dark-skinned female assassin closes the distance in a blur, lunging at him with a blade glowing with dark energy. His eyes widen in horror as the blade slashes across his throat, and blood erupts from the fatal wound. He's been killed in an instant. The assassin glances back over her shoulder, her expression cold and unimpressed. "Well," she says, as if she was expecting more of a fight. Muin jolts back to reality in his room, gasping for air with a look of pure shock on his face. "Holy shit," he yells. He clutches his neck, the phantom pain still fresh. "What's going on? I got insta-killed," he says, bewildered. He wonders how the assassin from the previous incident appeared inside the Black Book. He stands and addresses the book directly. "Black Book." The book's pages rustle as if in response, a dark aura still swirling around it. A screen materializes, displaying his proficiency levels. He sees his name, Moon Campbell, and his first order rank in both warrior and mage classes. Most importantly, it shows that after that brief encounter, his dagger combat and shadow step skills have gained a small amount of proficiency. A mischievous chibi version of Muin laughs. "So that's how it is. Is this your true ability, Black Book?" He then sweetly apologizes for yelling at it earlier, calling it "my dear." His expression becomes sharp and excited. "Let me try a few more times." A confident grin spreads across his face as he realizes the incredible potential of his new power, if my guess is correct. My cheat is going to be awesome. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more awesome stories. Late at night, within the grand and silent Campbell Duke's mansion, a story of struggle unfolds under the pale moonlight. Moon Campbell collapses onto his bed, gasping for breath. He has just returned from the brink, his body and mind utterly exhausted. He checks his pocket watch, bewildered. Despite the intense and seemingly lengthy battle he just endured, only 3 seconds have passed in the real world. Pushing through the exhaustion, Moon gets up. His hand is stained with blood from the illusionary battle as he reaches for the Black Book to check his progress. The book displays his status. His fighter and mage ranks are at the first order, but more importantly, his dagger combat and shadow step skills have gained a tiny amount of proficiency. He confirms his theory. A smug grin spreads across his face. He's figured it out. Any skill used by an enemy gets recorded. By fighting their shadow inside the book's illusion, he can gain proficiency and learn any skill for free. He vividly recalls the shadow he just fought, a formidable female assassin. Her footwork was incredibly swift and deadly, and her combat moves were lethally precise. This dark-skinned, black-haired assassin from the illusion is the source of his new potential skill. With this powerful cheat, he feels a surge of confidence. The protagonist of this world no longer seems so terrifying. He was just wishing for power, and fate delivered it right to him. With renewed determination, he slams the book shut, ready to dive back into the brutal training. He has to master these new abilities. The scene flashes back to his training inside the illusion. The assassin's shadow lands a brutal kick to his face, a memory still fresh and painful. He was completely overwhelmed, unable to defend against her flurry of attacks. The pain he felt was shockingly real. Again and again he was struck down, the illusionary death feeling no different from a real one. He grits his teeth just thinking about it. Just then his personal maid, Anne, peers through the doorway, calling out for the young master. The door creaks open, interrupting his thoughts. Anne enters the room, carrying a tray with his medicine. Seeing him lying in bed, she gently reminds him it's time to take it. Thinking fast, Moon pulls the covers over his head, pretending to be fast asleep. He makes muffled sounds to complete the act. Anne isn't fooled, but she plays along with a gentle smile, fondly recalling that he still sleeps bundled up just like he did when he was a child. Looking at the lump under the covers, her heart melts. She finds his little act incredibly cute and endearing. Deciding not to disturb him, she places the medicine on the bedside table and quietly casts heat preservation magic on the bowl to keep it warm. With one last fond look, Anne quietly exits the room, leaving the sleeping young master to his rest. The moment the door closes, Moon throws off the blanket, gasping for air as if he just escaped another death in his training. He clutches himself in agony, the phantom pain from the illusionary battle still lingering. The assassin's groin kick was particularly vicious. He seethes with frustration. How can she be so much stronger than him and still resort to fighting so dirty? It feels completely unfair, but he knows this is the level of ruthlessness he must overcome. The lingering pain and frustration only serve to fuel his resolve. Clenching his fist, he vows to dive back in again and again. He will land a hit on her, no matter how many tries it takes. A new day dawns on the Campbell estate, bright and clear, a stark contrast to the grueling night of training Moon has just endured. After his 185th attempt in the illusion, Moon lies in bed, utterly drained. He finally managed to last a whole 30 seconds against the assassin's shadow, a small but hard-won victory. His mind flashes back to the agonizing pain of the repeated deaths inside the Black Book's illusion, each one feeling terrifyingly real. He tried his best to counter, but the assassin's attacks were too swift, breaking through his defenses and his body. The overwhelming pain from the constant defeats eventually caused him to collapse onto the floor in a heap of frustration. Panting heavily, he takes a moment to recover, the phantom sensations of the battle slowly receding from his exhausted body. Finally, after a period of rest, a flicker of life returns to his eyes. He has recovered enough to face the day. He reflects on the nature of his training. While he doesn't actually die, the pain is real. He had hoped to abuse the system by re-entering the illusion nonstop to bypass the shock of dying. But his plan backfired. After nearly 200 consecutive deaths, the accumulated agony was so intense it almost caused him to pass out for real. But now, having endured it all, a confident smirk appears on his face. The worst is over, and it's time to see the fruits of his labor. He stands before the book, ready to check the results of his hellish all-night training session. The status page reveals his progress. While still a Tier 1 warrior, his dagger combat technique has jumped to level 2 with 35% proficiency, and his shadow step is now at level 1 with 11%. Tears of joy well up in his eyes. He's still nowhere near the assassin's level, but he has finally made tangible progress. It should only get easier from here on out. Brimming with excitement, he can't wait to test out his newly acquired skill in the real world. He strikes a pose, channeling his focus to activate the skill he practiced all night, Shadow Step. In a burst of shadowy energy and smoke, he shoots across the room. He looks back in astonishment, wondering if it actually worked. A look of pure elation washes over his face as he realizes the skill was a success. It worked. But his victory is short-lived as a sharp, unexpected pain shoots through his foot, cutting his celebration short. He collapses in a comical heap of agony, clutching his foot. He can't believe how much it hurts and wonders how the assassin could use it so effortlessly against Princess Alicia. Then a sudden realization dawns on him. His level is too low. He remembers from his knowledge of the academy that warrior techniques require battle chi, an ability only Tier 2 warriors can use. Accepting his current limitations, he sits down to reassess his plans. He's still too weak and needs to find a proper teacher to guide him. He considers the upcoming term at St. Maria Academy, but recalls that most of the instructors there are mages, with no truly strong warriors among them. This poses a problem. In a world where magic is considered so overpowered, almost no one bothers with martial arts, making a good warrior teacher incredibly hard to find. He racks his brain, searching for a solution, when a memory from the original novel suddenly surfaces. A light bulb goes off in his head as he recalls there was one warrior in the story who stood above all others, the most famous and powerful of his era. A slow, cunning smile spreads across his face as he pictures the man known for holding off 1,000 enemies alone, the unmatched peak of all warriors. The answer was so obvious, so simple, he can't believe he didn't think of it sooner. The epiphany hits him like a bolt of lightning. The most powerful warrior, his perfect teacher, is his own father, Moon Campbell, and he's been living in the same house all along. He recalls the legendary tales of his father's life. A prodigy who became a royal guard at 15 and then, as crown prince at 20, led the royal guards to crush both domestic and foreign rebel forces. At 25, he served as marshal, guarding the borders and winning battles that shook the continent. At 32, he returned in triumph and was granted the title of Lionheart King, becoming a duke through pure military achievement. This man, who has never lost a single battle in his life against kingdoms, demons, or rebels, is his father, his real, actual dad. Moon berates his original self for having been such a fool, sitting on a mountain of treasure without ever realizing it, with his father as a potential teacher who needs St. Maria Academy. His path is clear now. With a smug, determined smile, he decides that from this day on, he'll become a shut-in and receive personal training directly from his father. Just as he makes his happy decision, the voice of his maid, Anne, calls out from the doorway, asking if the young master is awake. He turns to see Anne, who informs him that the master is looking for him. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Overjoyed, Moon excitedly grabs a startled Anne, telling her this is perfect, as he also has something to discuss with his father. As they walk down the hall, he passes other maids and casually calls out Anne by her first name, showing a newfound familiarity. He quickly catches his slip-up and corrects himself, addressing her as head maid before dismissing the other staff. He stops, surprised by his own words, and asks Anne when she was promoted to head maid. Anne calmly explains that the former head maid resigned to take responsibility for recent events, and the Duke appointed her to the position not long after Moon woke up. Moon's expression saddens as he feels a pang of guilt. He remembers the former head maid, Faye, had been with his father since she was young, more like family than a servant. Her leaving must have been difficult for his father. Anne reassures him that he doesn't need to apologize. Faye has only resigned from her managerial role but remains with the family, and he will see her soon. As they step out into the garden, he's immediately swept into a tight embrace by his mother, a beautiful woman with warm green eyes and long blonde hair, who cries out his name in delight. She smothers him with affection, relieved to see he has recovered, while also playfully chiding him for calling her mother instead of the more affectionate mom or mommy. She suddenly grabs his head and pushes it down towards her stomach, telling him he should feel it too. Confused and blushing, Moon's face is pressed against her belly. He stammers, asking what she means. With a radiant smile, she announces the wonderful news. Very soon, he's going to have a little brother or sister. The royal physician confirmed it's real. The family shares a happy moment. Moon is overjoyed at the prospect of being a big brother, while his father, Moon Campbell, asks if he'd prefer a brother or sister. Moon replies that either is fine, he'd love both. His mother gently pulls him into another hug, telling him not to get too excited as he's only just recovered. But then, his father's voice cuts in, telling Moon to sit down for something important. The happy atmosphere in the garden gazebo shifts as the family sits down, the tone becoming serious for what is to come. Moon is stunned into silence as his father delivers the grave news. He is returning to the front lines. Moon Campbell explains that he will be departing this very afternoon. To ensure his wife's safety during her pregnancy, he will escort her and most of the maids back to the main Campbell territory. Duke Campbell then turns to the former head maid, a professional-looking woman with glasses named Faye. He entrusts the care of his wife, Noah's, to her while he is away, and Faye promises she will take good care of the madam. Moon protests, arguing that there must be other generals in the Empire capable of leading troops. Surely it doesn't have to be a duke, his own father, who goes to the front lines. But his father explains the situation is dire. After more than a decade of peace, the abyssal demons to the west are showing signs of movement. He will need to be stationed at the border for at least 3 years. The words abyssal demons and 3 years trigger a memory. Moon realizes this is a key event from the original novel. The initial demon invasion was just a feint for a much larger plan set to unfold 3 years later. And that point in time, 3 years from now, is exactly when the story's protagonist begins their world-saving arc. The realization sends him into a panic. His father is leaving for 3 years. What about his plan, his teacher? His brilliant strategy to lie low and become secretly overpowered is completely ruined. His grand ambition shatters before his eyes. In his mind, he wails in despair. It's over, it's all over. He tries to maintain a calm facade, but the teacup trembles in his hand, betraying his inner turmoil as he spills the drink. The time for departure arrives. A grand carriage waits, attended by a majestic griffin ready to take flight. The Duke comforts his crying wife, reminding her that crying isn't good for the baby. She sobs that she only agreed to leave for the child's sake, as she can't bear being away from her son, Muen. His father calls out to him with a serious tone. Muen, still lost in his own despair, looks up, completely unaware of the bombshell that's about to drop. The Duke praises Moon for his bravery during the assassination attempt, acknowledging it as proof of his Campbell blood. He then reminds him of their family's duty to protect the country as one of the 4 great ducal families. He points to the crest on his chest, a blade representing the king's sword and a dragon representing the empire's enemies. He is the empire's sharpest blade, a symbol of their family's role. He tells Moon that he has now come of age, and as an adult, he is free to choose his own path. The Duke assures him that he has prepared ample resources for him to do whatever he wants. Moon is deeply moved by his father's unexpected words of support and freedom, seeing a new, more paternal side to the stern Duke. But the tender moment is shattered as the Duke's tone shifts instantly. He leans in conspiratorially, stating that was all official talk, and now it's time for the real important business. He bluntly asks Moon for his opinion on Anne. When Moon hesitates, his father presses him, asking directly if he likes her or not. Flustered, Moon admits that he definitely likes her. The Duke notes that he has watched Anne grow up. She is smart, and most importantly, her affection for Moon is clearly more than that of a mere servant. He advises his son to act quickly. Moon is completely baffled, asking his father if he's actually telling him to get together with Anne. His mother chimes in, her hand on her belly, explaining that the family lacks descendants, and with the Duke leaving, securing the family line is a priority. Moon protests, shouting that he still has an engagement with Princess Celicia. The Duke dismisses the engagement as a mere political promise. He declares that even if the princess does marry into their family, she can be the main wife, implying Anne can simply be another. He then delivers his final, unyielding command. To sum it up in one sentence, he wants to be holding his grandchild in 3 years. This is not a suggestion, but an order from the head of the family. And with that, the Duke's carriage and griffin take to the skies, departing into the sunset, leaving Moon frozen in shock and despair. A moment later, Anne approaches him cautiously. She mentions that she overheard her name being discussed and asks if there is something he needs her to do. Trying to navigate the incredibly awkward situation, Moon forces a smile and gently pats Anne's head. He decides honesty, however clumsy, is the best approach, telling her it's not something he should hide. He continues, telling Anne that her role as a maid is temporary, and they will both have their own separate paths in life. He praises her as the family's most outstanding maid, saying a perfect woman like her deserves a wonderful man, not a mess like him. He then makes her a sincere promise. If she ever falls in love, she must tell him, and he will personally grant her permission to leave. Furthermore, he will prepare a luxurious dowry, ensuring that anyone leaving the Campbell family is treated with the utmost respect by their new in-laws. Moon Campbell feels incredibly proud of himself, believing his plan to gently dismiss Anne is a stroke of genius. He thinks that with his enlightened guidance, she must be moved to tears with gratitude. In the background, Anne stands silently, her thoughts hidden. However, Anne's expression is grim. She asks to be let go and to leave the Campbell family, but her internal thoughts are far from compliant. She clenches her fist so tightly that it bleeds, a stark contrast to her calm demeanor. She internally notes that the young master is indeed very different from before, and this change seems to trouble her deeply. A dangerous glint appears in Anne's eyes as they glow red. Her resolve hardens, and she decides she cannot wait any longer. Her plan must be executed tonight. The scene shifts to late at night in the Duke's mansion library. Moon Campbell sighs, lamenting that nothing ever seems to go according to his carefully laid plans. Despite the setbacks, he reaffirms his priority, getting stronger. With his father away, he resolves to self-study using the vast collection of martial arts books available in the family library. Moon formulates a new strategy. He'll postpone school and have Anne apply for a leave of absence for him. He'll use the Black Book's simulated space to train against the assassin and remain hidden until he is strong enough to defeat her. He looks at the stack of books with some frustration, noting that he's only halfway through one book and has barely read the preface of another. His progress feels too slow. Putting aside the regular texts, he raises the mysterious black book, deciding to confirm its unique properties once more. As he opens the black book, a dark aura emanates from it, swirling around his hands as its power activates. The book displays a list of techniques from other manuals he's touched. Moon realizes its amazing function. He doesn't need to memorize anything. The black book automatically stores the full content of any book he holds just by seeing its title. Overjoyed by this incredible cheat-like ability, Moon affectionately hugs the black book, declaring his love for his new favorite, Baby. He's still busy showering the book with affection when Anne appears at the doorway, carrying a tray with a bottle of wine. Anne interrupts his celebration, asking if the young master is still reading. Caught off guard, Moon acknowledges her presence. Moon stands up with a smile, asking if she brought him a midnight snack to help with his late-night study session. He expresses his gratitude, acknowledging how difficult it must be for her to manage the mansion with his father away. Anne simply replies that it is her duty. Anne presents him with a bottle of vintage red wine, explaining it's an extremely rare and expensive bottle delivered just that morning from Count Locke. While eating a piece of cake, Moon politely declines the wine. He explains that he still needs to study and doesn't want to risk dozing off. Anne continues to offer him a drink. Seeing her insistence, Moon requests coffee instead, thinking he needs a boost of energy to continue his work. Anne apologizes, claiming that due to certain circumstances, only red wine and black tea are available. She then begins to pour him a cup of black tea. Moon seems to accept her explanation without much thought, watching as she finishes pouring while he continues to eat his cake. However, as he thinks about it, a sudden sense of unease washes over him. He feels like this situation, this exact excuse, sounds strangely familiar. Anne provides a convenient excuse. A maid's carelessness led to the coffee beans being eaten by rats. Believing her story, Moon accepts the black tea, figuring it will still give him a little boost. He takes a drink of the black tea, hoping to clear his head and get back to his studies. However, the moment the liquid touches his tongue, the familiar taste triggers an alarm in his mind. Suddenly, his eyes snap open in horrified realization. He remembers exactly where he heard this story before. As the drug paralyzes his body, the teacup falls from his hand and shatters, his mind reeling from the betrayal. As his vision blurs and consciousness fades, Moon dazedly reaches out towards Anne, questioning her actions. He collapses into her arms, his strength gone. With his last bit of awareness, he weakly asks her why she betrayed him. Anne holds him close, her expression turning deceptively gentle. "Don't worry, young master," she coos. "I would never betray you, never ever." She whispers for him to sleep peacefully, holding his unconscious body as he murmurs her name one last time before succumbing to the drug. In the darkness of his unconscious mind, Anne's thoughts echo. She feels heartbroken that he tried to send her away, questioning how he could say such a thing after she loved him so much. She concludes that he has changed. Her thoughts take a darker turn. Since he has changed, she feels her only option is to purify him with her love, ensuring they will be together forever until the end of the world. Moon's eyes snap open in terror, his body jolting awake with a gasp. He pants heavily, shirtless and disoriented, his heart pounding as he tries to process what happened. He looks around the dark, unfamiliar room and discovers to his horror that his hands and feet are bound in heavy iron shackles. A dreadful realization dawns on him as he thinks about the prophecy. A figure emerges from the shadows. It's Anne, a sinister, possessive smile on her face. She confirms his fears, revealing that the person from the prophecy is her, and gloating that the drug she bought from a black market dealer worked perfectly. Struggling against his restraints, Moon demands to know what she is doing. Anne replies coolly, telling him he knows exactly what she's doing. She begins her confession, revealing she came to his side 10 years ago when he was just 8. From that moment, she existed only for him. In return, she believes he belongs only to her, and she is simply putting the now broken young master back on the right path. Moon shouts in confusion, not understanding what she's talking about. He desperately pleads with her to let him go so they can talk things out rationally. Anne gently places a finger on his lips, silencing him. "No, it's too late," she says softly. "You don't need to do anything, young master. Just leave it all to me." Her eyes gleam with obsession as she declares that after tonight, everything about him, from head to toe, body and soul, every scent and every strand of hair, will belong to her. "Will all belong to me." With that declaration, she lunges at the terrified Moon, asserting her ownership over him completely. Later, Moon lies exhausted, his eyes heavy with despair. He can't even remember how many times it's been. At some point, his consciousness simply started to fade in and out. Bound and broken, he stares blankly, never imagining that his 30-year career as a great magician in his past life would end like this in his new one. The horrifying truth finally clicks into place. The true culprit who secretly manipulated the original owner of his body into becoming a villain, the person who in the prophecy was meant to imprison him, was Anne all along. The scene flashes to Anne, who lets out a pained sound. The act of claiming him seems to have caused her some physical pain. She catches her breath, a slight blush on her face. Sure enough, she thinks to herself, even with mental preparation, it still hurts a little. Seeing her in apparent pain, the exhausted Moon tries to appeal to her, suggesting she doesn't have to force herself and that she can still unlock his shackles. Anne simply touches a finger to his lips, interrupting him with a soft but firm no. Her expression is one of blissful satisfaction. She tells him that compared to the long 10 years she has spent waiting for this moment, this little bit of pain is nothing at all. Leaning in close, she reveals the full extent of her horrifying plan. For years, she protected, doted on, and guided him, deliberately making him arrogant, ignorant, and conceited. She turned him into a useless person that everyone else would fear and avoid, ensuring that he would be hers and hers alone. Anne continues, explaining that she has been working for the past 10 years just to make him hers and hers alone. She states with chilling finality that no matter what he says, she will absolutely not let him go. The next morning, Moon is left to grapple with the unbelievable truth. Who could have guessed that the beautiful, gentle, and trusted head maid was not only a super yandir, but also the mastermind who turned the original protagonist into a scumbag? He recalls the prophecy that he will die at her hands. His survival instinct kicks in. Damn it, he thinks. I managed to avoid the exile plotline. I can't die so easily. He struggles against his bonds, determined to find a way to leave this prison. He's startled from his thoughts when he hears Anne's voice calling out, "Young master." Seeing that Anne is awake and looking at him, he quickly tries to play it cool. He stammers a lie, claiming the restraints just hurt his hands and he wanted to move them a bit. Anne ignores his excuse, noting that it's already noon. She decides it can't be helped and begins to get up. As she gets dressed, she explains that although she'll miss him dearly, she still needs to take care of matters in the ducal manner to prevent the other staff from becoming suspicious of his absence. While pulling on her stockings, she casually makes a terrifying suggestion. Since the young master now belongs completely to her, she wonders if she should just get rid of everyone else in the manor. Moon is utterly horrified by the casual way she suggests mass murder, his face a mask of shock and terror. Seeing his reaction, Anne turns back to him, her expression unreadable as she seems to gauge his response to her threat. She leans in close, her voice laced with jealousy. "Besides me, is there another maid in the manor that you like, young master?" she asks, specifically naming the girl Noel. Panicked, Moon frantically denies it, realizing his life and the lives of others depend on his answer. He is left sputtering, completely thrown off by her possessive jealousy and the direct threat against another maid. Anne covers her mouth and giggles, claiming she was only joking and he doesn't need to be so nervous. However, she adds a chilling condition. As long as he is obedient, she won't harm anyone in the manor, unless it becomes absolutely necessary. Seeing a potential opening, Moon tries to negotiate. "Then, can you unlock these shackles first? You say you like me, but do you really plan to keep me chained up like this for the rest of my life?" With a sweet smile, Anne pulls out a key and says, "Of course." Her tone, however, gives him no comfort. To his surprise, she unlocks the shackles on his hands and feet. As they fall away, she gives him a stern warning. She advises him not to try any funny business. Anne explains the room's security. The core is a sealed space forged from refined steel. The lock was made by a master craftsman, and she holds the only key. She boasts that it took a great deal of effort to build this secret room right under his father's, Lord Longin's, nose. Moon asks if his sudden disappearance wouldn't make people suspicious. Anne smugly explains her cover story. She told everyone that his old madam passed away and he, lonely, returned to the academy ahead of schedule. The other maids didn't find this surprising at all. She assures him no one will find him here, as she will personally bring him his 3 meals a day. She frames it as everything being the same as before, with her as his most trusted maid. Except for the fact that he now belongs completely to her. Moon is left blushing and speechless, unable to comprehend her twisted logic and the horrifying new reality of his situation. Anne smiles sweetly at him. "To have recovered your energy so quickly, as expected of my beloved young master. I'd love to continue where we left off yesterday, but unfortunately I have to go." She turns to leave, pausing at the door. "While I am away, please be a good boy and rest well here, young master." As the door begins to close, Moon makes a desperate, last-ditch plea, shouting, "Wait, at least give me back my clothes." His request is ignored. The heavy steel door slams shut, and the lock clicks into place, sealing him in the darkness. Alone and stripped of his freedom, Moon sinks into despair. He had imagined 100 different possibilities for who the dark figure in the prophecy could be, but never this. He wonders if he is truly destined to live out the rest of his days as Anne's property. He quickly rejects the idea of giving up. While last night was an experience, he knows that doing it a dozen times a day would leave him half dead, even if the prophecy doesn't kill him. More importantly, without freedom, he's no different than a salted fish. Filled with a new sense of resolve, he turns towards the heavy steel door. He has to at least try to escape. He grabs the handle and pulls with all his might, his body straining against the unmoving door, but it's no use. Frustrated, he begins to slam his body against the door, punching and kicking it relentlessly, but the reinforced steel doesn't even dent. He collapses to the floor, his hands and body aching from the futile effort. "Asura, it hurts like hell," he cries out, the reality of his confinement sinking in. Lying defeated, he confirms that the room truly is made of refined steel, even behind the rock of the walls. He had thought his cheat, the black book, would let him defy fate, but now it seems it's really over. Just as he is about to lose all hope, a swirling vortex of dark energy appears in the room, and his black book begins to materialize from within it. The book drops beside him, but he dismisses it. He reasons that Anne's methods are beyond what conventional magic can achieve, putting her on the same level as Celicia. Even frantically training in the simulated space would be too little, too late. He lies on the cold stone floor, utterly defeated, the black book resting beside him as a symbol of his seemingly useless power. He lets out a long, heavy sigh, the weight of his hopeless situation pressing down on him. Deciding he can't just wallow in despair, he sits up and grabs a nearby book. He figures it's better to go into the training space and get beaten up a few times than to stay in this depressing room. But as he opens it, he freezes. He recognizes it as the book he was reading last night, right before Anne drugged him. A new thought sparks in his mind. A glimmer of hope returns to his eyes as he reads the title, his voice filled with newfound excitement. The equation for victory. Sometime later, Moon's despair has been replaced by grim determination. He starts a grueling physical workout, counting out push-ups on the cold stone floor. He pushes through the pain, sweat dripping from his face, as he completes his 200th push-up, his body trembling with exhaustion. He catches his breath, thankful that his new body has a good constitution. He knows the Black Book's training space only improves techniques and can't build raw physical power, so he must rely on these primitive methods. In a moment of comical fury, he vents his frustration. "Celicia was like this, and now Anne is too," he cries. "From now on, I will absolutely not be pinned down again. I'm going to be on top." He's interrupted by Anne's voice, startling him. "Seeing you so energetic, young master," she says coolly, "I can rest assured." Anne has returned, floating a dinner tray and pitcher into the room with her powers. "Anne, you're back," he stammers. She smiles and confirms her work outside is finished. She tilts her head, finding his flustered reaction amusing. "What you just said, young master, sounded just like a wife waiting for her hard-working husband to come home. How cute." She announces that she has brought him dinner and a bathtub, the water already adjusted to his liking. For a moment, Moon forgets his plight, excited by the prospect of a bath after 2 days. Anne then presents him with a horrifying, seductive choice. "Do you want a bath first, or eat me first?" Instantly terrified, Moon yells bath, and scrambles towards the tub as fast as he can, desperate to avoid her advances. Anne seems amused by his panic, simply saying, "Fine, all right." Once in the water, he hesitates, trying to muster the courage to set a boundary. Anne," he begins, but she immediately cuts in, asking with feigned innocence if the water temperature isn't right. He clarifies that it's not about the temperature, insisting, "I'm not a child. I can handle something like bathing by myself." His words are rendered completely meaningless, as Anne is already pressed against his back, washing him intimately. "By yourself," she purrs, her voice dangerously close to his ear, mocking his futile grasp for independence. She presses closer, whispering seductively in his ear, "Has it only been one night, and you're already tired of me, young master?" Overwhelmed and flustered, Moon can only stammer a denial. "Good," she says with satisfaction. "The young master is now my property, and mine alone. Washing every strand and every inch of your body clean is my duty as your guardian." She continues to tease him, licking his ear and telling him he can have her whenever he wants. Moon panics internally, telling himself it's just a normal physical reaction and desperately trying to hold on and not lose himself to the Yandir's manipulation. Seeing his internal struggle, Anne seems to relent. "Since the young master wants to bathe by himself," she says, slowly withdrawing her hands from the water. Then allow me to feed you your meal, she finishes, having already prepared a plate of food. Starving and exhausted, Moon eagerly agrees, just wanting to eat. Treating him like a child, she holds a forkful of steak to his lips. Young master, say tilde defeated, he opens his mouth to be fed. The moment the food touches his tongue, his eyes sparkle. Despite the horrifying circumstances, the steak is unbelievably delicious, leaving him momentarily stunned by the taste. While soaking in a bathtub, Moon Campbell blissfully savors a piece of meat. He exclaims that he's never eaten beef this delicious before, noting how tender and smooth it is. His maid Anne praises him for recognizing it as beef. She reveals that he's actually eaten these ingredients often, but she usually put them in soup because she was afraid he wouldn't like the taste. As Anne gently wipes his mouth, Moon wonders aloud what cut of beef it could be, guessing between tenderloin or chuck. With a slight, unnerving smile, Anne bluntly informs him, it's bull penis. Moon is utterly shocked, spitting out the food as he repeats her words in disbelief. Anne cheerfully elaborates that it's from a Maglida giant bull, which are known for being particularly potent. She adds a disturbing detail about them creating new holes in trees when they can't find a mate. She concludes by calling them the divine tree-hole bulls. The grand, fiery image of the beast is comically contrasted with Moon's small, horrified, black-and-white form in the tub. As a disgusted Moon retches into a bucket she provides, Anne casually lists other similar ingredients like tiger, ox, goblin, and troll penis. Even mentioning dragon penis would be excellent if they weren't so rare. Moon, flustered and coughing, protests in disgust. Anne calmly replies that of course people can eat it, revealing that she has been secretly adding these ingredients to his meals for a long time. Having reached his breaking point, Moon erupts in fury, standing up in the bathtub and shouting that he can't take it anymore. He furiously yells at Anne, ranting about being imprisoned in a sunless place and being forced to eat such disgusting things. Pointing an accusatory finger at Anne, Moon continues his tirade, questioning if bull penis is even fit for human consumption and threatening her if she doesn't release him. Suddenly, in the middle of his threat, Moon's body goes limp and his strength fails him. A thought bubble reveals Anne's inner monologue. As expected, just one drop is enough. Anne embraces the weakened Moon, telling him that while she understands his anger, she cannot grant him freedom if it means losing him forever. Holding him close, she calmly tells him to sleep peacefully and leave everything to her as he loses consciousness. The scene shifts to an exterior shot of the grand, dark castle under the light of a full moon, as Anne ominously declares, the night is still long. Sometime later, Moon groans as he begins to wake up in a large bed, looking dazed and sweaty. As he comes to, the first thing he sees is Anne with her back to him, fastening her bra and asking if he's awake. While adjusting her maid outfit, Anne makes a disturbing comment, stating she went a little overboard yesterday and only did it twice today because she was afraid he would be too exhausted. Anne leans over him and asks if he feels any discomfort. Moon can only turn his head away with an angry HMPH. Still angry, Moon keeps his back turned to Anne. Seeing his mood, she tries a different approach, suggesting that since he's been a good boy for the past 2 days, she has a proposition for him. Anne offers to grant him one small request. This piques Moon's interest, and he looks over his shoulder, cautiously considering her offer. Moon immediately demands his freedom, but Anne flatly says that's not possible. He then asks for clothes, which she also denies with a simple no. Exasperated, Moon sits up and yells at her, questioning how small her small request could possibly be if she says no to everything. Anne pauses to think. Anne finally reveals the extent of her offer. He can decide what to eat for lunch and dinner. A glimmer of an idea appears in Moon's eye as he sees a potential opportunity in this seemingly small choice. Moon outwardly looks defeated but inwardly begins to formulate a plan. He reluctantly accepts the minor request, stating it's better than nothing. Seizing the moment, Anne asks him to decide on his meal. Seeing his opening, Moon begins his act. He thoughtfully notes that autumn is almost here, and Anne agrees. He waxes poetic about his past, reminiscing about boating on Lake Baper during autumn, admiring the scenery, drinking fine wine, and eating freshly caught autumn fish. Anne listens, contemplating his words. She correctly deduces that the young master wants to eat fish from Lake Baper, but realizes that having it delivered from so far away would be a problem. Anne's expression hardens slightly as she seems to see through his ruse, letting out a soft hiss of annoyance. Moon continues his dramatic performance, lamenting how he was once so carefree and now he's confined to a tiny cell. He calls his situation pitiful and tragic. He throws the blanket over his head, wailing that there's no point in living if he can't even eat fish from Lake Baper, and that he should just die. Peeking out from under the covers with a sly, calculating look, Moon watches Anne's reaction, calling out her name. Anne closes her eyes and lets out a resigned sigh. Despite seeing through his act, she gives in, saying, "I understand." Moon instantly drops the act and excitedly grabs Anne's hands, asking if she really promises. Anne confirms that she will get the fish from Lake Bakel, no matter the cost. Pleased that his plan is working, Moon charmingly praises Anne, calling her their most reliable head maid and amazing. Anne blushes deeply at his praise, completely flustered by his words. Moon gives a final encouraging push, telling her to do her best and that he'll be waiting for her at home. His words seem to have a strong effect on Anne. Suddenly, Moon's eyes widen in alarm as Anne's face gets closer. Overcome with emotion, Anne pulls Moon into a passionate kiss, much to his surprise. As she pulls away from the kiss, Anne gently pats Moon's back. Still processing the kiss, Moon watches as Anne turns and begins to walk away, prompting him to call out her name. Anne pauses at the door, telling Moon that it's a long journey, but she'll rush back before noon tomorrow. She tells him to be patient and then announces she's leaving. Once outside the room, Anne leans against the wall, clutching her chest and admitting to herself that she almost lost her composure. Overwhelmed by her feelings, Anne thinks that the young master is the cutest in the world, getting a nosebleed from her excitement. She resolves to catch the fish quickly so she can hurry back to dote on him. Back in the room, Moon lets out a sigh of relief, glad that Anne is finally gone. He reflects that although the night was an ordeal, he has now found a breakthrough. With a confident smirk, Moon summons a dark, glowing tome, calling it his precious treasure, the Black Book. He asks the Black Book if it can create other simulation trial spaces besides the one with the cult assassin. The book replies, "Of course." With a determined smile, Moon orders the book to create a trial space with 1,000 locks for him to practice on before Anne returns. As dark energy swirls from the book, Moon fully commits to his plan, declaring his intention to max out his divine skill and seize the precious time he has bought himself. Meanwhile, at the very place Moon sent her, a fierce storm rages over the border of Lake Baper. Amidst the torrential rain and lightning, a mysterious cloaked figure arrives at the water's edge. An adventurer in a white hood warns the cloaked Anne not to approach Lake Baper, as it's extremely dangerous. He grabs her arm to stop her, telling her to hurry and leave. Anne's visible eye glows with red malice as the adventurer touches her. Suddenly, dark, thorny tendrils erupt from Anne's cloak and pierce the adventurer's hand, causing him to cry out in pain. Surrounded by a purple aura, Anne coldly states that she hates it when anyone other than the young master touches her. She warns that the cut was just a warning and threatens to tear him apart and feed him to the fish if he tries to stop her again. She then demands to know what is going on at the lake. The terrified adventurer, clutching his bleeding hand, calls her a crazy woman and says he won't stop her if she wants to die. He urgently explains that the Lake Master of Lake Baper has awakened. It has been identified by the Adventurers Guild as a Monarch class, B-rank magical beast, and a subjugation party is already fighting it, so the lake has been sealed off. Anne understands that the Monarch class beast is the cause of the strange weather. The adventurer, now trying to bargain, tells her to leave and pay him 300 emels for medical expenses, warning that if she disturbs the adventure party, no one will get away unscathed. Ignoring his pleas, Anne simply tosses a bag of coins onto the ground at her feet before walking past him. Clutching his money and his wound, the adventurer asks in disbelief if she is still going. He calls her a maniac for knowingly walking into danger and questions her determination. Anne stops and looks back over her shoulder, simply asking why, as she stands in the rain. With a chilling smile, she answers her own question, stating her reason is, of course, because of love. The scene shifts to a young female adventurer in a purple cloak, a healer named Erica. She worries that if she doesn't act, someone will take away the man she loves, Rod. With newfound resolve and a blush, Erica decides that after this mission is over, she will finally confess her feelings to Rod. She snapped out of her daydream when Rod, a warrior fighting nearby, yells at her for spacing out during a battle. Rod yells for her to hurry and cast a healing spell because he can't hold on much longer. Startled, Erica agrees. Erica quickly begins her incantation, calling upon the spirit of life as a green healing aura envelops her. Meanwhile, Rod and a female adventurer in a blue cloak watch the water. The woman in blue scoffs that after taking so many spells, the beast is finally showing itself. An enormous explosion of water erupts from the surface of the lake. A monstrous shark-like creature with glowing red eyes, the Lake Baper's master, bursts out of the water before the adventurers. The blue-cloaked adventurer shouts Rod's name as the monster charges up a powerful water-based attack in its massive jaws. A third party member, a young man with a scarf, quickly casts a defensive spell, Blessing of Earth. The monster's powerful water jet collides with the golden, shimmering shield from the earth spell. As the shield holds, Rod grits his teeth and commands his party to use magic attacks. Startled but ready, Erica quickly agrees to his command. Erica begins to cast a new spell, calling upon the god of ice and snow as shards of ice and magical energy swirl around her. Then the other female adventurer, Tia, unleashes her own spell, shouting explosive magic. A massive fiery explosion engulfs the lake master, causing it to roar in pain as it is burned by the powerful spell. Seeing the monster stunned, Tia yells to Rod that now is his chance. Rod grits his teeth and lunges forward for the attack. With his sword wreathed in flames, Rod leaps through the air, preparing to strike the beast while it's reeling from the explosion. He brings his flaming sword down in a powerful, decisive arc, striking the lake master directly on its head. In the pouring rain, a creature of fire is extinguished by a powerful blast of water, signaling the end of a fierce battle. A young warrior, Rod, leans on his greatsword, panting from exhaustion. His battered and bruised face shows the difficulty of the fight he has just endured. With a confident wink and a thumbs up, Rod declares, "It's over," believing they have successfully defeated the monster. A tall, white-haired sorceress calls out to her smaller companion, a young girl in a purple cloak named Tia, praising her for her good work in the battle. Tia reassures her that she's fine, attributing their success to Rod's timely intervention. However, the sorceress notices that the skin on Tia's hand is cracked from the strain. As Rod expresses his gratitude, calling her a kind and valuable teammate, Tia looks down, her face flushing with emotion. His words trigger a memory for Tia, a flashback to their childhood, where she and a young Rod promised they would become the strongest adventuring duo and stay together forever. But the sweet memory turns bitter as she returns to the present, watching Rod share a tender moment with the tall sorceress. Tia's heart breaks as she realizes she was the first to enter his world, yet he never truly saw her. Tears stream down Tia's face as she questions why. Why, after all her efforts, was she not even a supporting role in his life, watching as he turned around and fell for someone else. Suddenly, the scene shifts, and Rod calls out to another girl, Erica, who is holding a glowing magical item. The tall sorceress, oblivious to Tia's heartache, tells her to stop zoning out and help them dismember the defeated Lake Master. Pushing her feelings aside, Tia forces a smile and quickly agrees, ready to move on. But just as they are about to relax, a sudden realization or sound makes Tia's eyes widen in alarm. Rod and the sorceress are equally startled. Rod recognizes a voice, his expression filled with disbelief and dread as he thinks, "That voice, don't tell me." An enormous pillar of water erupts from the lake, confirming their fears that the battle is far from over. Rod grabs Erica, shielding her from the sudden onslaught. They both stare in shock and disbelief at the impossible event unfolding before them. From the churning water emerges a second, far more monstrous creature, the true Lake Bapor Master. The party realizes they have only defeated a lesser version. Wasting no time, the tall sorceress gathers her power, preparing to unleash powerful explosive magic against this new, terrifying foe. The magic strikes the monster's head, causing a fiery explosion on impact. The attack only serves to enrage the true Lake Master. It roars, its body crackling with red magical energy as it prepares a devastating counter. The monster unleashes a massive blast of destructive energy, overwhelming the adventurers. Rod is thrown back by the sheer force of the blast, desperately shielding Erica from the immense power of the attack. Knowing they stand no chance, Rod tells Erica that the monster is beyond their capabilities and urges her to escape while he can still buy her time. Despite her injuries, the tall sorceress remains resolute. She declares that as the one who brought Tia into the party, it is her duty to protect her. With blood dripping down his face and a look of grim determination, Rod prepares for a final, desperate stand, declaring he is ready to face the monster, even if it means dying. Hearing Rod's declaration that he is willing to die for her, Erica's eyes widen in terror, not of the monster, but of the sacrifice he is willing to make. From the shadows, a mysterious hooded figure watches as Rod leaps across the battlefield, shouting Tia's name in a desperate attempt to protect her. The figure Anne calmly assesses the situation. She touches the remaining essence of the first creature and correctly identifies the massive beast as the monarch-class master of Lake Bapor. With chilling indifference, Anne internally remarks that if a monarch-class beast is only this powerful, then her actual mission, to acquire a dragon penis for her young master, should not take much time at all. Meanwhile, the true Lake Master gathers its energy, preparing to unleash another devastating beam attack on the exhausted adventurers. Seeing the overwhelming power gathering before him, Rod can only curse, knowing that they have no way to defend against this attack. In a final, desperate act of protection, Rod pulls Erica into an embrace, bracing for the impact and shielding her with his own body. But the end does not come. Anne steps forward, calmly extending her hand and uttering a single powerful command, restrain. A massive pillar of golden energy erupts from the ground, intercepting the Lake Master's attack completely. Rod flinches, but the expected pain never comes. He is only hit by the fading embers of the blocked attack. He looks back, his expression a mixture of confusion and astonishment at their impossible survival. The true Lake Master is now encased in a prison of dark, obsidian-like spikes that erupted from the ground, its energy attack completely nullified. Erica looks on, her eyes wide with disbelief, stammering that the Lake Master's attack was somehow blocked. Anne appears before her, offering a hand and asking if she is all right. Erica, still stunned, can only ask who this mysterious savior is. Anne calmly tells her not to worry and to stay safe, as she is now going to kill the beast. Overwhelmed, Erica can only stammer out an okay. With absolute authority, Anne once again commands the strange magic to restrain the beast. Erica watches in amazement and terror as dark tendrils of energy rise around them, noting that nearby metal is melting and turning into liquid from the sheer power. The liquid metal tendrils swarm the true Lake Master, completely enveloping and immobilizing the massive creature. Anne walks nonchalantly towards the restrained monster, complaining that its incessant screeching has scared away all the fish she was trying to bring back for her young master. She gathers an immense amount of dark power into her hand, forming a swirling vortex of destructive energy. Her eyes glow red with menace as she sentences the beast to death for its crime of getting in her way. With a single, devastating slash of dark energy, she effortlessly cuts through the monarch-class beast. The true Lake Master is instantly annihilated, its massive body disintegrating and collapsing into the water with a final splash. Rod, still shielding Erica, stares in absolute shock, unable to process what he just witnessed. A monarch-class magical beast, a creature that brought them to the brink of death, was killed so effortlessly. As the immediate danger subsides, Tia rushes to Rod's side, asking if he's all right. He reassures her that he's fine, though his stunned gaze reveals the profound shock he and his entire party are in. Rod holds Tia close, noticing her injuries are not minor. He offers her a healing potion to help her recover. Still processing the raw display of power they just witnessed, Rod turns to Erica and asks her to do him a favor and go speak with their mysterious savior. He explains his intention, to recruit the powerful woman into their party. With her ability to one-shot a monarch-class monster, he believes their team's strength would skyrocket and they would never face a life-or-death situation again. Meanwhile, Anne is by the now calm lake, holding two different fish. She ponders which kind her young master actually likes to eat, realizing she never confirmed this crucial detail. She sighs, scolding herself for making such a rookie mistake as a maid. Just then, a timid voice calls out, excuse me. It's Erica. She approaches Anne and points out that the two fish she's holding are inedible. One is foul-smelling and the other is highly toxic. She then helpfully points out the correct, edible fish nearby. Anne, impressed, asks Erica how she knows so much about fish. Erica explains that her village is just across the lake and she often fishes here. Anne then asks for cooking instructions, and Erica happily agrees to help. 15 minutes later, Anne is diligently taking notes on how to prepare the fish. She thanks Erica for the guidance, but Erica, blushing, insists it was nothing compared to being saved from the Lake Master. Erica works up the courage to ask if Anne came here to fish for someone she loves. Anne confirms she did, for her beloved, prompting Erica to say he must be a very lucky person. Anne pauses for a moment, a thoughtful and slightly distant look in her eyes as she considers Erica's words. A fleeting image of her young master, Moon, flashes in her mind, the object of her intense and obsessive affection. Anne agrees, adding with a chilling smile that he will be very lucky once he fully understands the depth of her love. She then thanks Erica for her help and prepares to leave with her bucket of fish. Desperate, Erica quickly calls out for Missin to wait, stopping her before she can depart. With tears welling in her eyes, Erica confesses that she has a concern about love and asks if it would be okay to confide in a mature senior like Anne. Anne puts down her bucket, acknowledging that love troubles are one of the world's rare problems without a clear answer. She offers her help as a return gift for the cooking advice, inviting Erica to ask her anything and promising to help based on her own experience. Erica begins nervously, trying to disguise her own heartbreak by pretending she is asking for advice for a friend. She explains that this friend has liked someone for a very long time, but is unsure of his feelings because he is very dense and kind to everyone around him. Anne correctly identifies the man as a warm, hearth-type person. Erica agrees and reveals the situation became a love triangle when another woman appeared just as her friend was about to confess. With her voice full of emotion, Erica explains that her friend is considering giving up, feeling that the man she loves seems to be mutually in love with the new girl, leaving her as just the childhood friend. Anne, seeing through the thin facade of the friend story, understands Erica's pain and decides to address the issue directly. She looks Erica in the eyes and asks her a direct question, dropping all pretense. "Miss Erica, just how much do you love this man?" Flustered and exposed, Erica panics, comically trying to maintain the lie that she is talking about her friend. Covering her blushing face with her hand, Erica sighs in resignation. She finally drops the facade and confesses the truth. She is the one in love, and has been for over 10 years, ever since they were children. Anne listens, then poses a sharp, critical question to test the depth of Erica's resolve. Does she love him enough to give her life? Erica's response is instant and passionate. She declares yes, vowing that she would do anything for him, even things the world would never accept. Anne pulls her hood back over her head, posing a final question to Erica. If her love is truly as deep as she claims, does she really need to ask for advice? With a sinister smile, Anne gives her parting advice. Follow the truest voice in your heart and give everything for the one you love, so you don't make choices you'll regret. She wishes Erica luck and begins to walk away. As Anne disappears into the night, her final words echo in Erica's mind. To give everything for the one you love. Erica's expression hardens with a newfound resolve. A faint blush on her cheeks, she quietly repeats the mantra, "Follow your hearts." A dark, corrupting energy begins to swirl around her as she agrees with the dangerous advice, her innocence starting to fade. A sinister voice born from Anne's manipulation whispers into her mind, calling her Elka. It questions her desire to give up, reminding her that she is a person who would abandon morality, law, and even her own life for love. The voice continues to tempt her, showing her an image of Rod and Tia together, and asking if she, who can sacrifice everything, is truly willing to let that happen. The taunting works. As the voice asks if she's willing to let them be together, Erica breaks down, her inner thoughts screaming that she could never possibly accept such an outcome. Her suppressed feelings erupt in a torrent of rage and jealousy. Her eyes glow red as dark flames surround her, and she screams that she would go mad if Rod were with anyone else, especially that bitch Tia, whom she wishes would just die. The sinister voice praises her for finally understanding her true feelings. It urges her to follow the deepest desires of her heart, to conquer and possess. As dark energy coils around her, the voice gives its horrifying instructions. Brand him, make him hers alone. When Erica worries that Rod is too strong, the voice coldly states that once his limbs are broken and he's collared, he'll be nothing more than a pet. Her corruption now complete, Erica is engulfed in dark, fiery energy as spectral skulls manifest around her. The voice makes its final promise, "Fear not, child. I shall bestow power upon you, the great power of absolute love." Continuing from the previous chapter, the scene shows the aftermath of a battle. A young man named Rode worriedly asks his companion, Elka, if she's all right after she suddenly collapsed. He suspects that the woman who was with them might have done something to her. However, it's their other companion, Tia, who answers. She reassures Rode that she's fine and that Missin didn't harm her. Tia explains that she simply ran out of mana and is a bit tired, adding that Missin, being from a noble family, would never join their adventuring party. Rode looks disappointed, saying it's a shame that Missin has already left. He expresses his regret, wishing he could have thanked her in person. He acknowledges that if she hadn't saved them, their fate would have been dire. Rode then turns his attention to Elka, the girl with light-colored hair, noticing something amiss and pointing towards her chest. The focus shifts to Tia, who looks startled as a glowing red mark becomes visible on her chest through her torn clothes. Rode, seeing this, asks in alarm if she is injured. Tia quickly dismisses his concern, claiming it's not a serious injury, just a burn from the electric shock she used to fight the Lake Lord. Sensing the lingering danger, she urges the group to hurry back to the guild to rest and make a report, especially since her own injury needs proper treatment. Agreeing with Tia, Rode decides they need to move quickly. Without a second thought, he lifts the weakened Elka into his arms, startling her. Elka tells him to put her down, insisting she can walk by herself. But Rode gently chides her for being stubborn, remarking on how light she is and that he could carry her all day without a problem. Flustered, Elka protests that her weight isn't the issue. Rode softens his tone, reminding her that she got hurt while saving him and that she should learn to rely on him more. As the group moves on, a brief close-up on Tia reveals her eyes glowing with a sinister red light, hinting at a hidden, darker side to her character. The scene transitions. It is now noon on the following day, showing a grand and opulent castle under a clear sky. Inside what is ominously labeled the Campbell Duke's Mansion dungeon, a young man with blonde hair, Moon Campbell, slowly wakes up in his bed. A maid with dark hair and striking red eyes enters the room carrying a covered platter. She announces her return to her young master. This is Anne, Moon's obsessive captor. Moon throws a dramatic tantrum, crying out that he was on the verge of death and couldn't wait any longer for her return. Anne playfully teases him, asking if he was so moved by her that he's ready to give himself to her. Moon, flustered and angry, retorts that he was just about to starve to death after she was gone for a whole day and night. Anne apologizes, explaining that her trip took so long because she went all the way to Lake Bakel to ensure he could eat the freshest fish, rushing back with all her might. She lifts the lid, presenting the fish she prepared for him. One is grilled and the other is steamed. Moon's eyes sparkle with delight at the delicious aroma. Anne asks which one he would like to eat, and he eagerly chooses the steamed fish first. Anne says okay and takes a piece of the steamed fish with a spoon, preparing to feed her young master. She holds the spoon up to his mouth, gently saying "Ah tilde," as if feeding a small child. Moon obediently opens his mouth and eats the piece of fish from the spoon Anne is holding. His face lights up as he savors the taste. "Whoa, this is really delicious," he exclaims, then offers to share some with his maid Anne. Anne politely declines, saying the meal was prepared especially for him. She then warns him to be careful, as this kind of fish has a lot of bones. Moon scoffs at her concern, retorting that he isn't a child anymore. A small chibi panel illustrates Moon's overconfidence, dismissing his maid's caution, as Anne looks on with a patient, knowing smile. His arrogance is short-lived. A moment later, he clutches his throat in panic, realizing he's choking on a fish bone. Anne watches his distress without a flicker of surprise, calmly stating, "Is that so?" Then it can't be helped, seeing her opportunity. Anne leans over the panicking Moon, pinning him to the bed. He asks what she's trying to do, his voice filled with dread. With a predatory calmness, Anne simply states, "I want to kiss you, young master." Moon is horrified by her proposition. "Now," he questions, unable to believe her timing. Anne explains her twisted logic. Since he has a fish bone stuck, she'll kiss him, pinch his nose, and use her powerful lung capacity to suck the bone right out. Moon is utterly aghast at her suggestion. "Suck it out with a kiss," he shouts, his face a mask of disbelief and horror. "Why, you're joking, right?" Despite his protests, Anne lunges at him. Moon tries to fend her off, pleading with her to stop, but his struggles are futile as she overpowers him, his protests muffled. His resistance is completely crushed as Anne easily restrains his hand, her grip firm and inescapable. His muffled sounds of protest are all that can be heard. She forces a deep kiss on him, holding him down as he struggles. It's an act of dominance disguised as help, leaving Moon completely at her mercy. After a moment, Anne pulls back, a small sound effect signifying the dislodging of the bone. Moon is left gasping for air, panting that he almost couldn't breathe from the intensity of her rescue. With a smug and satisfied smile, Anne looks down at him. "Look, young master," she says, her tongue playfully out, "I've sucked the fish bone out for you." A flustered and visibly shaken Moon tries to regain some composure. He thanks her reluctantly and asks for the plate, insisting he can eat by himself and promising he won't get a bone stuck again. Defeated for now, Moon takes the plate and finishes the rest of his meal, eating the fish with a newfound caution and a resentful look on his face. Anne watches him with a knowing, gentle smile, her plan having gone exactly as she intended. The sound of the spoon against the plate is the only thing that breaks the tense silence. After he finishes eating, Moon lies back, remarking on how satisfying the meal was, but Anne, standing by his bedside, sees this as an opportunity. "Now that the young master is full," she says suggestively, "shouldn't we be doing that?" Moon's brief moment of peace is shattered. He looks up at her in alarm, his eyes wide with fear as he asks, "That, you don't mean?" Anne ties her hair back with a seductive smile. She reminds him of Lord Roan's order for her to bear an heir for the Campbell family with him as soon as possible. Moon immediately panics, trying to push her away. "Why, wait a minute, not now," he yells, trying to create some distance between them. Anne feigns disappointment. "Oh, we've done it so many times this past week. Could it be that the young master is already tired of me?" Moon frantically denies this, shouting that's not the problem as she presses for a reason. Thinking fast, Moon comes up with an excuse. He claims that exercising after a meal is bad for one's health, and that she must be tired from her long journey. He concludes that conceiving a child when neither of them is in their best condition would be unhealthy, asking if she understands his meaning. Anne seems to buy his excuse, putting on a show of being touched. "Young master, are you concerned about my health?" she asks. Moon, seizing the opportunity to delay the inevitable, awkwardly agrees and suggests they postpone things until tonight. Anne agrees, saying the young master makes a good point and that they'll do it tonight. Since we're waiting, she adds, getting up, there's something I need to report to you. Moon asks what it is. Anne begins her report, stating that on her way back, she passed through Celestia City, a high-class town famous for its textile technology that produces custom clothing for royalty. Moon listens, wondering where this is going. She leans in close, whispering that she bought a very sexy outfit. She describes it as being made of the black silk material he likes the most, and that she heard the shiny bodysuit is a popular style for maids in underground dance halls. Moon can only ask in disbelief, a bunny girl. The image shows exactly what Anne has purchased, a revealing, shiny black silk bunny girl costume, complete with sheer stockings and a collar. Moon is left speechless and blushing, his mind trying to process what he just heard. He can only let out a small An incredibly flustered Moon vehemently denies her accusation. Who told you I like black silk? I'm a gentleman, he stammers, trying to wave off her words as nonsense while failing to hide his obvious blush. Anne's smile turns into one of chilling confidence. Is that so? She asks sweetly, before systematically dismantling his desperate denial. She questions if he has forgotten that she's been his personal attendant for years, revealing her intimate knowledge of the locked cabinet where he keeps a secret collection of romantic storybooks. She lands the final blow by stating that among all those books, the ones featuring stockings, especially black stockings, are the most numerous. Anne doubles down, lifting her skirt slightly. She asks if he hasn't noticed that she's been wearing black stockings exclusively ever since he came of age. She declares her entire wardrobe consists only of black stockings, and it's all because of him. Moon is left speechless, his defenses completely shattered. He mutters to himself that he always thought it was just her personal preference, never expecting the terrifying truth that his own hidden desires shaped her entire identity. In a moment of complete psychological surrender, a chibi version of Moon gives a thumbs up. He admits defeat, loudly declaring, "You win, I give up. Your young master, just like black silk, I love it." Anne giggles, covering her mouth. She finds it exceptionally cute that the young master has no choice but to be honest about his preferences. Moon, in his chibi form, can only look on in confusion. With her victory secured, Anne picks up the tray and announces she'll take care of household affairs, promising to see him tonight. Seeing his chance, Moon quickly stammers for her to go ahead, claiming he's going to take a nap. As Anne leaves, her magical aura trails behind her. A heavy clunk sound is heard as the lock on the outside of Moon's door is secured, sealing him in his prison once more. The moment he's alone, Moon's demeanor shifts entirely. He leans over and spits something out. It's the fish bone from before. He had cleverly hidden it in his mouth the entire time. Holding his new tool, Moon thinks to himself, I've got the thing, and I've finally gotten rid of her. He then consults his black book, which shows the current time is around 3 p.m. Based on her patterns, he calculates she'll be done with her duties around 6. With a look of fierce determination, Moon holds the fish bone. He realizes he has a 3-hour window. 3 hours, he thinks. That's plenty of time. His escape attempt is about to begin. Draped only in a cloth, he kneels before the heavy, reinforced door of his prison, ready to put his plan into action. He carefully inserts the thin, sharp fish bone into the keyhole, the faint sound of it clicking against the lock's mechanism. Focusing his intent, Moon's eyes flare with power. He mentally activates a skill he acquired from his black book, max-level fish bone lockpicking. The skill activates, and his consciousness is pulled into a mental space where he can visualize the inner workings of the lock. He's shocked by what he sees. Before him stands a monstrously complex mechanism. He realizes with dread that it's a 12-pin lock, a far greater challenge than he could have ever imagined. The shock sends him reeling. Back in the real world, he falls backward onto the floor, cursing in disbelief at the sheer complexity of his prison door. Lying on the floor, he stares at the ceiling in despair, his mind racing. 12 pins, there are a full 12 of them, he thinks, processing the impossible task ahead. He understands the principle of the lock. Using the fishbone, he must push all the pins corresponding to the key into the correct position. If even one pin is wrong and doesn't align with the shear line, all the previous pins will reset. The challenge is even greater because the fishbone is incredibly fragile. The force of the pins springing back could easily snap it, destroying his only tool. He checks his supply. He only has 4 fishbones of suitable length and hardness, but he realizes that the limited number of tools isn't even the hardest part. He's struck by the most despairing thought. If he fails and Anne finds the broken fish bone in the lock, his trick will be exposed, and he'll never get another chance. The stakes are absolute. This is it. Staring at the barred window on his door, he understands the gravity of the situation. He has only one chance to escape this cage. With renewed determination, he returns to the door and begins the painstaking process of picking the complex lock. He carefully manipulates the fish bone, but one of the pins clicks back into place. A failure. He must start over. Sweat drips down his face as he tries again, his expression one of intense focus and frustration. The word again echoes in his mind. The pressure mounts. A chibi version of Moon is shown screaming and pulling his hair out in frustration, yelling that he only has the last 3 pins left. The process is clearly taking a toll on his sanity. After countless failures, Moon collapses in exhaustion. He thinks to himself, an hour and a half of effort, all for nothing. He sarcastically wishes good health upon the craftsman who made the lock, cursing his frustration. Taking a moment to breathe, he summons his black book to check the time, the pressure mounting with every passing minute. The book reveals it's 5:30 p.m. He realizes with a jolt that there's only about an hour left until Anne returns to deliver his meal. Time is running out. He looks at his remaining tools. His heart sinks as he realizes he only has one fragile fish bone left. This is his final chance. Despite the immense pressure, he steels his resolve. It's all right, he tells himself. I've completely gotten the feel for the first 10 pins. With his last hope on the line, he vows to succeed this time. Gathering all his strength and focus, he channels his energy into his last tool for one final attempt, screaming fish bone lockpicking, full power. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the mansion's kitchen, where the atmosphere is deceptively calm and domestic. Anne is cooking alongside another maid, a cheerful blonde girl named Noelle. The two are preparing fish soup. Noelle takes a small sip to taste their creation, a blissful expression on her face. She erupts in delight, exclaiming how delicious the soup is. As expected of fish from Lake Baikal, she declares, this is the best fish soup I've ever had in my life. Anne smiles, mentioning that thanks to Noelle's help, dinner was ready an hour earlier than usual, and the soup is even more delicious. Noelle humbly brushes off the compliment, attributing the great taste to Sister Anne's amazing seasoning. Noelle then brings up something she's noticed. She points out that Anne has been learning many new recipes lately, even though the master and madam are away and the young master is at school, leaving just the staff. Her suspicions grow. She adds that she also noticed Anne taking food away after cooking, and that they've been eating fish for the past few days. As she speaks, a sinister aura briefly emanates from the kitchen knives. A light bulb goes off in Noelle's head as she connects the dots, a look of realization on her face. She comes to an innocent conclusion. Sister Anne, she says excitedly, you must be secretly keeping a pet in the mansion. I bet it's a cat, right? Anne remains silent, her expression unreadable. Noelle continues, proud of her detective work. She remembers that young Master Moon doesn't like small animals, claiming their fur gets everywhere, which is why they've never had cats or dogs in the mansion. She pieces it all together. Keeping a pet is a small violation of the rules, and since Anne is the head maid, she can't tell everyone. Am I right? She asks, looking for confirmation. Anne decides to play along. With a secretive smile, she puts a finger to her lips and asks, can you keep this a secret for me? Noelle enthusiastically agrees, sharing that she loves fluffy things too. Excited by the prospect, Noelle asks if she can go see the kitty with Anne. Anne gently turns her down. I'm sorry, Noelle, the little one is a bit shy around strangers right now. She promises to take Noelle to see him when he's a little older. Noelle, understanding, gives her encouragement and excuses herself. Once she's alone, Anne's true thoughts surface. She looks down at the basement entrance, thinking, thankfully, it didn't come to the worst-case scenario. It would have been quite troublesome to dispose of a maid's body without anyone noticing. Standing at the top of the stairs leading down to the dungeon, her eyes glowing with a red, sinister light, she muses that what Noelle said did give her an idea. The scene cuts back to Moon, who is still desperately trying to pick the lock, completely unaware of the horrifying conversation that just took place. Anne's voiceover continues. The young master will get bored if he stays in a confined space for too long. Anne clasps her hands behind her back, continuing her monologue. She dismisses the urgency of getting pregnant, noting that a baby wouldn't be born for another 10 months anyway. The focus shifts between Anne's sinister plotting and Moon's pained struggle. Besides books, she thinks, I should consider getting the young master a small animal to ease his loneliness. Anne considers the idea further. A cat, that's a good choice. She wonders what color Moon would like, a beautiful golden one like him, or a little black cat like me. This chilling thought confirms her intention of turning Moon himself into her pet. Anne ends her sinister musings with a sweet, chilling smile. She decides, I should probably just ask the young master directly. Suddenly, a loud clang echoes from the dungeon below. Startled, Anne's eyes widen as she drops the tray of food she was carrying. She knows what that sound means. With the lock finally broken, Moon pushes the heavy door open. A soft sound effect marks the moment his desperate struggle finally pays off. He is free. He steps out not into a hallway, but into a dark, refuse-filled tunnel. I'm finally out, he thinks with relief, realizing his cell was hidden in the sewers. He notes the breeze, deducing the exit is ahead, but is disgusted by the amount of junk. As he tries to navigate the darkness, he trips over a piece of debris, crying out as he falls. Catching himself, he complains that it's too dark to see, and the junk makes it impossible to move. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as he realizes his escape is not yet certain. A thought strikes him. He recalls the memories of the original Moon Campbell, the previous owner of this body, and remembers a useful skill. He reasons that this far from the cell, using magic should be fine. He summons his power, confidently casting a light spell. A glowing orb materializes in his hand, illuminating the dark sewer. A chibi version of Moon examines the light, pleased with himself. So this is a light spell. It's quite useful, he thinks, confident that with this, he'll be able to get out soon. Just as his hope builds, a sudden splash from behind shatters the silence, startling him. His face twists in horror and disbelief. No way, I've already run this far. The hope in his eyes turns to pure dread. His worst fear is realized. Anne stands there in the sewer water, her figure surrounded by ominous, shadowy tendrils that writhe in the darkness. With her eyes glowing a malevolent red, she looks at him and announces calmly, "I've found you, young master." In a final declaration that seals his fate, Anne tells him, "But you can't escape from the palm of my hand." The chapter concludes, promising a continuation of his desperate struggle. Her words echo in the sewer as she stands amidst her shadowy power, her victory absolute. Moon's escape attempt has ended in complete failure. He looks at his captor, the one person he thought he had finally outsmarted, and can only whisper her name in despair. N. His spirit is crushed. Damn it, I barely managed to escape that cage. How can I end up here? He thinks, his hope completely extinguished. But as despair threatens to consume him, a spark of defiance ignites. Gritting his teeth, he glares at Anne and screams, "Don't you dare underestimate me." Continuing from the last chapter, the Maid Anne materializes amidst a swirl of dark energy and sharp blades, her expression calm yet menacing. She looks towards her target and commands, "Stop, young master." Without waiting for a response, she unleashes her power. Numerous sharp, blade-like constructs shoot through the air with incredible speed. The blades slam into the surrounding structure, causing a massive explosion of wood and debris. Cowering on the floor, the young master, Moon Campbell, can only let out a terrified scream. A close-up reveals Anne's chillingly indifferent expression, her crimson eyes showing no remorse for the destruction she has caused. Looking up, Anne observes the massive hole in the ceiling, a testament to the power she just unleashed to block her master's escape. She gracefully descends through the chaos, her body surrounded by the lingering wisps of her dark power as she kicks away a piece of debris. She lands elegantly on her feet, walking calmly through the wreckage-strewn, flooded floor of the underground passage. Anne surveys the destroyed environment she created, a silent testament to her overwhelming power and obsession with keeping her master imprisoned. With a hint of surprise, Anne questions Moon, asking if the magic that allows him to run so fast was something he learned at St. Mary's Academy. Having cornered him behind a large wooden door, Anne speaks to him. She notes that she thought she had sealed the area off completely, expressing slight surprise that he still managed to escape. Peeking through a crack, she admits that she underestimated him. However, her confidence remains unshaken as she reminds him that he can't truly escape from her grasp before proposing a new offer. Her eyes narrow as she delivers an ultimatum. If Moon comes out on his own and returns to her side, she will forgive this incident. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe. To prove her point, Anne extends her hand and unleashes another wave of shadowy power, striking the door Moon is hiding behind. Moon's face is a mask of pure terror. He's sweating, his eyes wide with fear as he hears Anne taunt him from the other side. "Guessed wrong. What a pity. Next one." Overwhelmed by fear, Moon has a moment of despairing deliberation. He thinks maybe he should just give up, rationalizing that being imprisoned isn't so bad when he doesn't have to worry about food and has a beautiful girl serving him. At least he's still alive. After attacking the wrong spot, Anne scans the area. She notices there is no fluctuation in the air current, leading her to believe that Moon is not hiding there anymore. Believing her prey has moved on, Anne turns and leaps away, speeding off into the distance to begin her search anew. 10 minutes later, the scene is quiet, showing the heavily damaged and barricaded door where the confrontation took place. Convinced that Anne has gone far away, Moon breathes a sigh of relief, his heart pounding from the near-death experience. He thinks to himself that Anne must be chasing after him outside, and now is his chance to act while she's gone. Taking his chance, Moon reaches for the handle of a different door. However, his face instantly contorts in shock and horror at what he sees. Peeking through a narrow crack in the door is Anne's glowing red eye. She hadn't left at all. She had been waiting silently for him to reveal himself. With her trap sprung, Anne smashes through the door, her dark energy swirling around her as she finally corners her young master. She stands over him amidst the smoke and splinters, a picture of absolute control and dominance. Anne's expression turns to one of slight disappointment. She says to herself, "It seems I was mistaken. The young master has indeed run far away. A pity." Having seemingly concluded her search in this area, Anne turns and walks into the darkness, vowing to find her young master as soon as possible, leaving the wreckage behind. Meanwhile, back in the darkness, Moon Campbell is terrified to the point of fainting. A small spirit companion worries that it will be troublesome if Noelle and the others find out about this situation. Suddenly, the heavy sealed door that Anne had attacked earlier comes crashing down right where Moon was hiding. He cries out in shock, scrambling away from the falling debris, his feigned unconsciousness now a genuine panic. Moon catches his breath, realizing with horror that Anne had actually doubled back to check on him. He thinks to himself that it was a good thing he pretended to faint, otherwise the sheer terror would have been real. Holding a book, Moon steels his resolve. He knows it's been half an hour, but he can't be sure if Anne is waiting outside or still searching. Realizing it's too dangerous to stay, he decides he can only take a gamble. Mustering his courage, Moon unleashes a powerful blast of blue energy, shattering the seal on another exit. He strains to push the heavy door open, the pouring rain from the outside world greeting him. Finally, he stumbles through the opening, out into the stormy night, leaving his prison behind. In a state of disbelief and exhaustion, Moon looks out into the rain and whispers, I'm out." A wave of euphoria washes over him. He throws his arms open and head back, shouting into the rain, "I succeeded. This is the feeling of freedom." He immediately clasps his hands over his mouth, realizing his mistake. He tells himself it's not time to celebrate, as Anne could be wandering nearby. He knows he must leave the capital immediately and run as far as he can. Fueled by adrenaline and fear, Moon breaks into a desperate sprint through the woods. He recalls how angry Anne looked and knows he barely escaped death. If he gets caught now, he fears the Black Book's prophecy will come true. The scene transitions. 2 days later, Moon has reached the vast, sunny expanse of the Berlin Plains. Exhausted, Moon lies spread-eagled on the soft grass, his clothes tattered. He reflects that after 2 days and 2 nights of non-stop running, he has finally escaped the reach of the capital. He closes his eyes, trying to enjoy the morning sun and the gentle breeze. As his tense nerves finally begin to relax, a wave of fatigue washes over him, and he considers getting some sleep. But his eyes snap open with renewed urgency. He knows it's not time to let his guard down yet. Getting to his feet, Moon assesses his situation. He's only 1 city away, and he knows Anne's methods are efficient enough to track him quickly. He weighs his 2 options for a complete escape: his family's Campbell territory or St. Mary's Academy, concluding the academy is closer. He crouches by a lake, splashing cool water on his face to wake himself up and clear his head. Feeling slightly refreshed, Moon decides on his plan. He will make a dash for St. Mary's Academy in one go. Just as he's about to set off, his attention is drawn to a commotion nearby. He overhears a rough voice shouting at someone, "Halt, you wench, do you think the 3 of us are dead?" Moon sees 3 menacing bandits surrounding a lone traveler. The bandits demand that the traveler hand over their valuables, threatening violence if they don't comply. The traveler, a woman in a hood carrying a staff, calmly identifies herself as an adventurer. She asks the bandits if they think they can handle the consequences of robbing her. The lead bandit scoffs, saying they can tell she's an adventurer, but since they can't sense any combat aura from her, they assume she's just a weak mage. He confidently states that because she is alone, she stands no chance. The hooded adventurer, Elka, remains unfazed. She questions their audacity, asking if they aren't afraid of a hero appearing to deliver justice for robbing people in broad daylight. Her talk of a hero is met with derisive laughter. The bandit leader stomps his foot and mockingly repeats her words, "A hero? Ha 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 ha," as if it's the most absurd thing he's ever heard. The bandit leader smirks, patting his chest proudly. He condescendingly asks Elka if she has figured it out yet, boasting that they are professional bandits. His 2 cronies chime in, explaining that being professional means they plan ahead and always have a clear route for their heists. The trio strikes a confident pose, high-fiving as they declare that professionalism also involves accurately identifying their target to ensure there are no mistakes. The leader unsheathes his sword, correctly guessing Elka's strategy. He warns her to stop backing away, as he knows she's trying to create distance to cast a spell. He threatens to chop off her hand if she dares to take another step back. Elka clicks her tongue in annoyance, her escape plan thwarted. The bandit leader continues his gloating, adding that they've already scouted the area and know that no one ever passes through, making her hope for a hero's intervention impossible. Just then, a voice from the lake shouts, "Stop!" The bandits turn in surprise, while in the water, Moon Campbell realizes he has just drawn their attention. As Moon emerges from the water, one of the dumber bandits mistakes him for a blonde mermaid. The other bandit quickly corrects him, yelling that he's obviously a man. Striking a heroic pose, Moon boldly challenges the bandits, asking what kind of skill it is for three big men to bully a single girl, and telling them to come at him instead. To Moon's utter shock, the bandits immediately agree. He is left speechless that they accepted his challenge so readily. The bandit leader waves a dismissive hand at Elka, telling her she can go. One of his underlings starts to object, but the boss's attention is now fully on Moon. Moon panics, realizing his bluff has been called. He frantically tries to backpedal, claiming he has no money and is only wearing a rag. He desperately offers to send them money later if they give him their contact information. The bandit leader interrupts, a strange glint in his eye. He says he doesn't want money, noting that while lone fools pass by all the time, a blonde, blue-eyed beauty like Moon is rare, especially a man. His face darkens with a sinister grin. "Brothers, change of plans," he declares. "Today, we're robbing him of his virtue." His cronies cheer in agreement. Moon is aghast, letting out a horrified scream as he processes the new threat. What the hell kind of world is this? Even this world has gays. As the bandits pursue him, Moon yells for the damn gay not to come near him. The bandit leader shouts back for him to stand still. Watching the scene unfold, Elka lets out an exasperated sigh. Deciding she's seen enough, Elka closes her eyes and begins to chant. Fire gathers in her hands as she commands the spirits of flame in her master's name. She unleashes her spell, and a massive pillar of fire erupts from the ground, engulfing the bandits in an explosion spell. Caught in the inferno, the bandits' screams of pain and terror are quickly silenced as they are incinerated by the powerful magic. Moon, who is just out of the blast's range, looks back at the fiery spectacle with wide-eyed shock, breathing out a stunned, "Holy shit." As the smoke clears, Elka stands calmly with her staff and basket. She calls out to Moon, "Those three idiots have been dealt with. Come on up, Mr. Mermaid." Trying to save face, Moon thanks Elka for attracting their attention, pretending it was a coordinated attack. Elka plays along, complimenting his amazing magic before starting to ask him a question about his presence in the wilderness. Elka glances at his tattered, wet clothes and comments on his public indecency, remarking that city folk are wild. Moon frantically protests, insisting it's not what she thinks and that he has his reason. Regaining his composure, Moon flashes a charming smile and extends a hand, introducing himself as Muin, currently unemployed. Elka shakes his hand, introducing herself as a former adventurer who is now a newlywed, training to be a good wife. Moon is visibly surprised to learn that she is already married. Elka elaborates with a blush, admitting she just got married the previous night. Playing the part of a gentleman, Moon congratulates her and wishes her and her husband a long and happy marriage, which she shyly accepts. The polite conversation is abruptly interrupted by a loud growl from Moon's stomach, much to their mutual embarrassment. Moon smiles sheepishly, apologizing and admitting that he is incredibly hungry after not having eaten for 2 whole days. With a kind smile, Elka turns and invites him to come with her, an offer he can't possibly refuse. She explains that as thanks for his help with the bandits, she was already planning to cook. She also offers him a change of clothes from her husband, warning that he'll get sick if he remains in his tattered, wet garments. Moon's eyes light up with joy. He's ecstatic at the prospect of a meal and fresh clothes. Elka modestly tells him not to have high expectations, as they're just old, well-worn clothes. Overcome with gratitude, Moon begins to flatter Elka, calling her a goddess of truth and beauty. He proclaims that her husband must have accumulated good fortune for hundreds of lifetimes to marry her. Elka chuckles, admitting she likes the praise, and encourages him to continue. As they walk, Moon's curiosity gets the better of him. He asks why a newlywed like her would come to such a remote place and get targeted by bandits. Elka explains she was in town for her husband's work and was returning with groceries. Moon correctly deduces that since Elka is an adventurer, her husband must be one as well. Elka confirms his guess, adding that her husband's name is Road. She explains that since they are taking a break from adventuring after getting married, they had to report it to the guild to avoid being mistakenly marked as dead. Changing the subject back to food, Elka turns to Moon with a pleasant smile and asks if he would like to have fish for dinner. Forgetting his exhaustion, Moon's face lights up once again. He enthusiastically agrees, exclaiming that he loves eating fish more than anything. Suddenly, his joy is cut short by a dark, intrusive memory. He hears the chilling voice of his pursuer, Anne, whispering, "I love you, Tilda," and his world is momentarily plunged into a vision of red and black. Moon physically flinches from the traumatic flashback, looking around nervously. Elka notices his strange reaction and asks him what's wrong. He quickly brushes it off, claiming he didn't hear anything and is probably just hallucinating from extreme hunger. He urges her to keep moving. Soon, they arrive at a quaint village nestled in a green valley, with traditional half-timbered houses. Elka leads him towards a particularly large and well-maintained house that stands out from the others. Moon comments on the impressive size of her house, but Elka clarifies that it belongs to the village chief. She and her husband are only staying there temporarily. As they get closer, Moon decides to voice a suspicion that has been growing in his mind. He points out how eerily quiet the village is, noting that they haven't encountered a single person since they arrived. He adds that all the doors are wide open, questioning if she isn't afraid of thieves. For a moment, a shadow seems to cross Elka's face. Elko explains the quietness by saying everyone is busy. She asks if he knows of Lake Baper, and Moon perks up, recognizing it as a place known for its fish. She elaborates that the autumn harvest from the lake is about to begin. Because the village soil isn't suitable for farming, the residents rely on fishing to make a living for the entire year. Elka continues, explaining that her husband, Rode, is responsible for protecting the villagers and transporting the fish to the city. While he's away on these trips, she stays behind, acting as the village's sole guardian during this crucial period. Moon nods, outwardly accepting the logical explanation for the empty village. He murmurs that it makes sense, though a faint sense of unease still lingers beneath the surface as he considers how tough her duty must be. But the memory of Anne's obsessive, "I love you," continues to haunt him, a dark red swirl of trauma that clouds his thoughts. Shaking off the feeling, Moon follows Elka into the large house. She invites him in, pointing out slippers by the door as he numbly agrees. Even inside, Moon remains on edge. He feels that the sinister whisper is getting closer and can't tell if it's real or just his imagination playing tricks on him. Having changed into clean clothes herself, Elka brings some to Moon, along with a cup of water. She tells him he can wash up at the well outside and that dinner will be ready soon. He politely thanks her for her trouble. Despite her kindness, Moon's paranoia, honed by his time with Anne, takes over. He cautiously inspects the water, checking for sediment and any unusual smell. He then dabs a bit on his skin, finding no adverse reaction. He concludes that the water isn't drugged and seems normal. He reassures himself that Elka's story is logically sound and she seems trustworthy, but a seed of doubt remains. As he takes a drink, he can't shake the feeling that something is still a little off about the whole situation. A short while later, Moon lets out a satisfied huff. A clean plate with nothing but a fish skeleton remains, a testament to how hungry he was. Now dressed in the clothes Elka provided, a contented Moon compliments her cooking, saying it's as good as his own maid's. He adds that she'll surely become an excellent wife. Elka accepts the compliment, but cleverly picks up on his mention of having a maid. She notes that he must not be an ordinary person, giving Moon the perfect opening to reveal his true situation. Taking the chance, Moon decides to come clean. He reveals his full name, Moon Campbell, and his status as the son of Duke Roan Campbell, one of the 4 great ducal families of the empire. Elka looks surprised to hear he is a duke's son. Moon explains that he is being hunted and desperately needs her help to rent a carriage from the Adventurers Guild, send a letter to his family's territory, and find a place to stay. Elka bursts out laughing, clearly not believing his story. She jokingly asks if he's going to ask her for a huge loan to reclaim his title next. Moon tries to insist that he's telling the truth about being a duke's son who just escaped the capital. To prove his seriousness, Moon offers her a substantial reward, 20,000 emilia. Elka continues to tease him, asking if he isn't going to offer her a title like Countess instead. Moon becomes flustered, insisting that he isn't joking and that this is incredibly important to him. Seeing his desperation, Elka finally stops laughing and apologizes, saying she understands now. She tells him she had already planned to let him stay for the night, since there are wild beasts outside. She then offers to show him to his room. Moon is taken aback but relieved, asking if she has truly agreed to his request. Elka simply replies, "Of course." Elka explains her reasoning. 20,000 emilia is no small sum, more than she might make from 30 quests. With that much money on the line, she has no reason to refuse. Overjoyed, Moon thanks her profusely, calling her an angel. Elka leads Moon down a dark hallway, lighting the way with a lantern. She shows him to a clean-looking room and points out the location of the toilet, but gives him a stern warning not to wander at night or open any doors without permission. She then stops, pointing specifically to a heavy, dark door at the end of the hall, and adds with chilling emphasis, especially the door at the very back. Moon is left staring at the forbidden door, a new sense of dread replacing his relief. Continuing from the previous chapter, Elka explains to Moon that she's preparing dried meat for the upcoming winter, which is 2 months away. She warns him not to wander around, as the house belongs to the village chief, and she would be in trouble if anything were messed up. Moon, still believing she is a kind host, quickly agrees and promises not to wander. Having settled the matter, Elka shows Moon to his room for the night. From the doorway, she politely tells him to get some rest. Moon, feeling safe and grateful, waves goodbye to Elka, wishing her a good night and saying he will see her tomorrow, completely unaware of her true nature. Elka turns away, echoing his words with a seemingly innocent expression, "See you tomorrow." However, the moment she is alone, her facade drops. With a sinister look, she thinks to herself, "A pity you won't be seeing tomorrow." Her malicious intent becomes clear as a glowing red crest, a strange sigil, materializes on her chest. She scoffs at Moon's status, musing that a living young master is something, but a dead one is nothing. She moves towards a closed door, dark, ominous energy swirling around her hand as she prepares to offer Moon as the final sacrifice to her god of love. Embracing her dark power, one of Elka's eyes turns a glowing red, matching the sigil on her chest. Her expression is one of cold, predatory decision as she thinks, "I choose you." Meanwhile, outside in the wilderness under the night sky, a mysterious figure in a dark, hooded cloak kneels, having picked up a piece of cloth from the ground. This is Anne, Moon's obsessive pursuer. She brings the cloth to her nose, inhaling his scent. She confirms it's him, remarking with satisfaction that he managed to run quite far. Anne looks up from her crouched position, her gaze fixed on the distant village where Moon is currently staying, her objective clear. With glowing pink eyes filled with possessive determination, she vows that Moon is destined to never escape her grasp, calling him her dear young master. Back at the village chief's house, the building stands silently under the bright full moon, hiding the dangers that lurk both inside and out. Inside, Moon is not resting peacefully. He tosses and turns in his sleep, breathing heavily as if trapped in a nightmare, his brow furrowed with distress. He wakes up with a groan, clutching his head in discomfort. He complains to himself that he shouldn't have drunk so much water before bed and now has an urgent need to use the restroom. Driven by nature's call, Moon gets out of bed and cautiously heads towards the door of his room. As he opens the door, he hears a faint sound from outside. His expression shifts to one of cute, innocent curiosity as he peeks out and wonders, a doggy. He steps out for a better look but sees nothing, leading him to believe he might have just imagined the sound. Suddenly, he lets out a startled yelp. Elka has appeared right behind him without a sound, calling out his name and catching him completely off guard. Elka puts on a sweet, charming smile, her head tilted innocently as she asks him why he's still awake so late and if something is wrong. Caught sneaking out of his room, Moon is flustered, his face scrunching up in an embarrassed and awkward expression as he stammers. He quickly explains that he just woke up to use the restroom. Remembering what he heard, he then asks Elka if she has a dog, mentioning that he heard a woof-woof sound. Elka's smile turns sly. She confirms that it's her dog, describing it as the cutest and most handsome dog in the whole world. She adds that the dog is usually well-behaved and must be hungry to be barking so suddenly. Moon's face lights up with innocent excitement. He exclaims that he knew he wasn't just hearing things, and, revealing his love for dogs, eagerly asks if he can see the animal, mentioning he's always wanted a fluffy, smart golden retriever. Elka gently turns down his request, fabricating the excuse that her dog is very shy around strangers, which is why it's always hiding. Though disappointed, Moon accepts her lie for the moment, still intending to head for the restroom. Still playing the part of an oblivious guest, Moon waves goodbye and says he'll go use the restroom first. Elka, maintaining her sweet facade, simply agrees. As he leaves, Elka gives him directions with a smile. "The toilet is next to the well, don't go to the wrong place." Moon cheerfully replies, "Okay." The moment Moon is out of sight, Elka's expression turns sinister. Her eye glows a menacing red as she watches him go, her predatory nature surfacing once more. Moon finds the outhouse just as Elka described, located next to a stone well in the yard. However, a strange sound catches his attention. He peeks into the outhouse and is immediately hit by a foul stench, causing him to recoil in disgust as he complains about the village's poor hygiene. His disgust quickly turns to serious contemplation. The strange barking he heard earlier wasn't coming from the outhouse, and his suspicion deepened. He approaches a small, shed-like building nearby, deducing this must be where Elka keeps her so-called dog. He mutters to himself that the barking sounded strange. Finding a crack in the shed's wooden door, his curiosity gets the better of him. He decides to take a quick, harmless peek, still naively wondering what kind of dog she could have. Through the crack, an absolutely horrifying scene unfolds. It's not a dog, but a bruised and muscular man, chained by the neck like an animal. This is Rode, Elka's husband, being fed from her hand as she tells him to be quiet after eating. Rode looks up, his face a mask of despair and resignation, covered in cuts and bruises. Elka calmly tells him that Moon is still useful, so he must be patient until tomorrow. The truth hits Moon with the force of a physical blow. His eyes widen in sheer terror, a silent scream of "holy shit" echoing in his mind as he grasps the true depravity of his host. Reeling back in shock, Moon accidentally steps on a dry twig, which snaps loudly in the quiet of the night, betraying his presence. The sharp sound instantly alerts Elka. Her head whips toward the door of the shed as she calls out suspiciously, Who's there?" Holding Rhode's chain, Elka walks towards the door, her suspicion now focused on her guest. "Is that you, Mr. Mewan?" she calls out, her voice laced with dangerous curiosity. With adrenaline coursing through him, Moon has scrambled up the wall of the house just in time. Elka peeks out of the shed but sees no one. Seeing the empty yard, Elka wonders if she was just hearing things. Above her, clinging to the brick wall, Moon remains perfectly still, hidden in the shadows. Elka decides she should check on Moon anyway, just to be safe, noting that it'll still be a while before the god of love awakens. The moment she walks away, Moon takes his chance and leaps from the wall. He lands gracefully on the ground below, immediately breaking into a run to put distance between himself and the House of Horrors. Once at a safe distance, Moon pauses to catch his breath, his mind reeling from the discovery. He can't reconcile the kind, amiable woman he met with the monster she truly is. His mind flashes back to the photo he saw in the hall, confirming the tormented man is indeed her husband. He curses his terrible luck, having barely escaped one Yandir, and only to immediately run into an even worse psycho. Everything clicks into place. The terrifyingly quiet village, Elka's story about a dog, the mention of a god of love, and the strange sounds. Realizing he can't get help here, he knows there's only one option left. Run for it. Pushing off the ground, Moon uses a skill that cloaks him in shadowy energy, enhancing his speed as he flees for his life. A moment later, Elka arrives at Moon's room to check on him. Finding it empty, she calls out his name, but there is no answer. Her eyes lock onto the open window, its curtains fluttering in the night breeze. The realization is instantaneous and infuriating. Her prey has escaped. A scream of pure rage tears from her throat. Her body erupts in a violent, blood-red aura, unleashing a wave of destructive power in response to Moon's escape. Her rage explodes. The red energy from her body blasts through the wall in a shower of splintered wood as she unleashes her fury at Moon's escape. Standing amidst the dust and destruction, Elka looks up in disbelief and frustration, wondering, damn it, when did she notice? It's not Moon she's referring to, but another woman who has just arrived. Her rage turns to shock as she hears a familiar voice. She came back, she thinks, her crazed expression shifting to one of surprise. It is Anne who stands calmly in the doorway, impeccably dressed in her maid uniform. She greets Elka with a simple yet chilling statement. "You were gone for a while." Elka is taken aback, her initial confusion turning into shocked recognition. "Oh, it's you, she exclaims. Anne greets her with a placid, long time no see. Elka, however, is flustered and deferential, addressing Anne with the title that reveals their true relationship, Master. As Anne enters the house, the narrative pauses, marking a dramatic shift in the scene and the confrontation to come. The scene flashes back to a previous meeting. Elka serves tea to Anne, whom she calls Master, and compliments her on the cute maid outfit she's wearing. Anne explains she had to leave her mansion in a hurry and didn't have time to change. She then questions why Elka has been calling her Master, as she doesn't recall teaching her anything. Elka smiles, explaining that Anne's enlightening words gave her the courage to accept her true, twisted self. She proudly states that she confessed to her husband, Rode, that very night and then asks her Master if she would like to see the results. Anne looks on with detached curiosity. "See," she asks. Elka clarifies, "Yes, see the fruits of my labor." Intrigued, Anne agrees. Elka gets up with a cheerful and eager expression, telling her master to wait just a moment while she prepares the reveal. Returning to the present, Anne sits alone in the dimly lit room. She glances at the cup of tea Elka served her, confirming a suspicion. There's no mistake, she thinks. She rises from her seat, sensing something in the air. she recognizes the lingering scent of her beloved young master, confirming that Moon was indeed here. Her expression instantly sharpens. Alongside Moon's scent, her keen senses pick up something far more alarming, the distinct smell of blood. Just then, Elka returns from the other room, cheerfully announcing, "Sorry to keep you waiting, master." Anne turns to face her, her mind racing. Anne's eyes widen in genuine surprise as she sees what Elka has brought. Her thought is cut short as she simply registers the sight as this. Elka proudly presents the fruit of her labor, her husband rode, chained and kneeling like a dog. "Tada, master, this is my dearest, dearest husband," she chirps, ordering Rode to greet Anne. He obediently lets out a pitiful woof. Continuing the degrading spectacle, Elka commands Rode to offer his paw. He places his hand in hers and barks once more, completely broken. Elka pets his head and praises him like an animal, good boy, clearly delighted with her work. Anne looks on, her expression unreadable. Instead of horror, Anne processes the scene with a chillingly analytical curiosity. So this is another way for couples to play, she muses to herself. Interesting. Anne praises Elka, telling her she's done well. Elka, flattered, humbly replies that Anne must have already made her own lover surrender completely, and that she herself still has a long way to go. Anne shakes her head. "No, you've done better," she says, confessing that it was her own indulgence and negligence that allowed her lover, her young master, to escape her grasp. The pieces click together in Elka's mind. She looks at Anne in dawning horror as she realizes the identity of her master's lover. "Young master, master, your lover be." The final, shocking connection is made. Anne stares at Elka, her eyes wide with realization. The Mr. Mewen who just escaped Elka's clutches is the very same young master she has been relentlessly hunting. With the shocking truth revealed, Anne confronts Elka, her voice sharp. "Exactly, so the young master did come here, didn't he?" After Elka stammers her confirmation, Anne presses on. "Where is he now?" Elka hesitates, trying to formulate a lie. Elka quickly spins a half-truth, explaining she found a disheveled Mr. Mewen, brought him in, and gave him a room. She then lies, claiming she heard a noise and came out to find he had simply disappeared without a word. Anne's eyes narrow, her expression turning cold and dangerous. She asks a critical question. "How long has he been gone?" Elka, looking away, replies, "Less than 2 hours." Trying to get back in her master's good graces, Elka boasts that she has learned tracking magic. She offers to make Moon's footprints visible, claiming they can still catch him if they leave immediately. She tells Anne to wait while she goes to cast the spell. Playing along, Anne calmly agrees, "Then I'll leave it to you." As Elka leaves, she gives Anne a pointed warning not to wander around the house, especially into the other rooms. It's a desperate attempt to keep her horrific secrets hidden. Anne simply agrees to wait. Left alone, Anne sits on the edge of the bed Moon had used, her thoughts consumed by him. "Young master," she whispers to the empty room. Her hand clenches the fabric of her dress, her emotions tightly coiled as she sits in the room he just escaped from. Her mind drifts, showing the depths of her obsession. She imagines herself in bed, clutching a pillow, lamenting how Moon ran 3 cities away just to escape her. "Do you hate me that much?" she wonders. "Why? Why can't you just accept my love?" Returning to the present, she presses her face into the pillow Moon used, inhaling his lingering scent. Her moment of obsessive reverie is cut short by a sound. She looks up and sees Rode, Elka's tormented husband, standing before her. She immediately recognizes him from the earlier, depraved display. A spark of desperate clarity appears in Rode's eyes, a flicker of the man he once was breaking through the abuse and trauma. Suddenly, he lets out a blood-curdling scream, clutching his head, as if being tormented by horrific visions. In his agony, he cries out names and warnings from his past. "Tia, everyone, don't," he babbles, reliving the slaughter of the other villagers. Anne approaches him with a semblance of concern, asking if he's all right as he collapses. In his delirium, he mistakes her for his tormentor, crying out, "Elka." He grabs her hands with surprising strength, his mind focusing for a brief moment. He shouts his wife's name again, this time as a warning, "Right, Elka." With frantic urgency, he tries to warn Anne, pointing towards the hidden part of the house. "The last room, leave, get out of here now, Elka," he gasps, desperate to stop her. But the effort is too much. His brief moment of lucidity fades, and he collapses into a quiet, defeated whimper. Anne stands over the broken man, his words echoing in her mind. He has given her the final clue she needs. Ignoring Elka's warning to stay put, Anne's gaze becomes sharp and focused. Rode's frantic words have confirmed her suspicions. "Elka, the last door," she repeats. She looks down the hallway to a single, unassuming door, realizing this must be what both Elka and Rode were trying to keep her from. Does she mean this one? She approaches the door and finds it locked, just as she expected. A simple lock won't stop her. Anne places her hand on the door, and with a surge of her own dark power, she prepares to force her way in, shattering the lock and whatever enchantments Elka placed upon it. With the door blown open, her eyes widen in shock and horror, unprepared for the depravity she is about to witness. Before her lies a gruesome, blood-soaked chamber. A woman is crucified on the far wall, suspended over a pile of countless mutilated bodies, the missing villagers. This is Elka's sacrificial altar to the god of love. Staring into the gruesome chamber, Anne recognizes the mutilated corpses. Her voice is a low, horrified whisper. These are the villagers. Her horror quickly hardens into cold fury. She turns, her eyes glowing with rage, and screams the name of the one responsible, Elka. Elka appears at the end of the dark hallway, a bloody knife in hand. She is completely unfazed, greeting Anne with a chillingly casual tone. "Oh my Tilda, it seems you found out, master." With a psychotic smile, Elka walks towards Anne, utterly convinced they are kindred spirits. "But it's all right," she giggles. "Master, you and I are the same kind of people. You'll understand me, right?" Her eyes glowing a demonic red, Elka throws her arms wide in a twisted declaration of her philosophy. I love you," she screams, a testament to her depraved idea of affection. Anne looks down on the deranged Elka, her own dark aura swirling around her. She responds with a single ice-cold phrase, "I see." With her glowing pink eyes filled with disgust, Anne confronts her directly, naming the source of her corruption. "Have you been corrupted by the evil god, Elka?" Elka brings a hand to her face, letting out a soft, maniacal giggle at Anne's choice of words. Her giggle explodes into a full-blown, hysterical laugh. She throws her head back, surrounded by her blood-red aura, mocking Anne's accusation. "Evil god, ha. She brings the bloody knife to her lips, her red eyes burning with fanatical light. "Master, how can you say such things about the god of love?" she chides. "That's very disrespectful." Elka explains her delusion. The god of love granted her the power to fulfill her wish of loving everyone. Anne listens silently, her expression hardening. Anne cuts through the insane rambling, asking the most important question. "What is the price for the power to make your wish come true?" Elka scoffs at the idea of a price, claiming the god simply helped her see her true nature. She then reiterates that she and Anne are the same, and that her sacrificial offering is just one person short, clearly threatening to add Anne to the pile. Convinced Anne will join her, Elka lunges forward, knife raised high in her blood-red aura, screaming, "You'll accept my love, won't you?" Anne looks down with an air of finality, her expression a mix of pity and resolve. She closes her eyes, having made her decision. It seems she's a lost cause. Elka, completely oblivious to the danger she is in, closes the distance, her knife poised to strike Anne. With a deranged, sweet smile, Elka makes a final, insane promise. "Don't worry, master, you're my teacher, so I'll be very gentle when I cut you open." But Anne is more than prepared. As Elka strikes, Anne's eyes flare red and she unleashes her own power, a maelstrom of dark, sharp tendrils erupting from her body as she calls out, "Iron Defense." Anne's attack is overwhelming. The dark tendrils of her iron defense easily overpower Elka, impaling her from multiple angles and stopping her assault instantly. Elka coughs up a spray of blood, her eyes wide with shock and betrayal. She can only manage to ask her former master, "Master, why?" Her strength fails her, and she collapses heavily to her knees, blood pouring from her grievous wounds. Anne turns her back on the dying woman, her own power receding. She delivers her cold verdict. "I'm sorry, Elka. I can't let you hurt anyone else." Lying in a pool of her own blood, Elka coughs and weakly protests that she didn't hurt anyone. "I was just giving them my love," she whispers. "What's wrong with love?" Elka's twisted justification is the final straw. Anne spins around and bellows, "That's enough." Furious, Anne declares the fundamental difference between them. That's not love at all. As she stands over her defeated apprentice, the dying Elka can only ask, "If it's not love, then what is it? This is clearly love." But with her dying breath, Elka lands a final, devastating blow, not with a knife, but with words. She throws Anne's own philosophy back at her. "To possess everything about the one you love. You're the one who taught me that, master." Elka's words hit their mark. Anne looks down at the body of her fallen apprentice, a flicker of genuine remorse on her face. "I'm sorry," she whispers, accepting her role in the tragedy. She steps out onto a balcony, the cool night air doing little to calm her turbulent thoughts as she reflects on the bloody events. Covering her face, a wave of guilt washes over her. She realizes that her own possessive words, twisted by the evil god's influence, led Elka down this path of slaughter. This twisted love that makes one kill the person they love. "It's my fault," she admits. Her guilt quickly hardens into resolve. She turns away, her priority clear. "This all started because of me," she vows, After I find the young master, I must come back and give her a proper burial. As she prepares to leave, her mind is assaulted by visions. The words, I love you, appearing in dark, bloody splotches, a haunting echo of her own obsession and Elka's madness. The visions continue, plastering the bloody words over the very architecture of the House of Horrors, a constant reminder of the depravity that unfolded here. The obsessive declarations multiply, seeming to echo from the walls themselves, a chorus of twisted affection. The entire house seems to dissolve into a hellscape of blood and obsession, a physical manifestation of the corrupted love that has poisoned the place. Shaking off the horrific visions, Anne's resolve is absolute. Her hunt is no longer just for Moon. Now she has a second target, the evil god responsible for this corruption. Meanwhile, Moon is sprinting through the dark forest, pushing his abilities to their absolute limit to escape the village. He finally skids to a halt, gasping for breath, having run himself to the point of utter exhaustion. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he looks around the quiet woods. He sees no signs of pursuit and allows himself a dangerous thought: I should be safe. His moment of relief is shattered. A massive, destructive force tears through the trees from above, heading straight for him. He's thrown to the ground as the impact creates a massive explosion of force and debris, carving a crater into the forest floor. Stunned and battered, Moon looks up from the wreckage, shouting, "Holy crap," in disbelief at the sheer power unleashed. He watches the dust settle, his mind struggling to comprehend what just happened, wondering if it was some kind of meteor shower. As he coughs in the dust-filled air, he hears something through the ringing in his ears. It's a person's voice. An icy dread washes over him as he recognizes the voice. He looks up and sees his worst nightmare standing before him. His hope of freedom dies in an instant. Standing amidst the destruction, bruised and bloodied but victorious, is his relentless pursuer. He can only scream her name in utter despair, Anne. Wiping a trickle of blood from her mouth, Anne looks at her recaptured master with the same unwavering, possessive gaze. "Young master," she coughs, "I knew you were nearby." Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more awesome stories.